seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I thought it would fade us in there, boys. Let people see the background, because obviously we've landed again in another country. We've landed in Brazil. The 2014 World Cup, guys, on the Bustalgia tour. And just like it's kicking off right now in the Holland-Argentina game live, it's about to all kick off here on the Bhoycie Bus. Because, yeah, we continue on in the old Bustalgia World Tour. World Cup 2014 is an exciting one. I'm looking forward to talking about this. But as you can see, folks, joined by my usual comrades on a Friday evening for the boys. Well, they always swapped it around. I wonder where he was going there. I wonder where he went. But, yeah, Russell Boyce, mate, how the devil are you, my friend?
Brilliant, mate. Good to be back on the old Bustalgia bus. It is a pity that the game's now going to extra time. I think it might be a slow night for passengers because the drama looks like it's unfolding in the World Cup right now. Did you say who scored for Holland the second goal?
I just saw them running off celebrating. I didn't even see who it was that scored. Somebody in the comments might keep us right. But yeah, it seems to all be kicking off anyway. We're a riot on the park between all the players, but
again,
another one. Yeah, it was all kicking off at full time there, a scrap and everything. It's been a mental one, but we will persevere through it. I'm sure we'll get through it. By the time extra time and penalties finish, we're into the second half of the show anyway when we get into the crux of it. So that'll be fine. Well, that's how we'll do it. But Liam, you're back on the bus as well, mate. How you doing, man?
I am great, thanks. Just trying to find a feed here for the game.
I
just got to it just when all the fighting starts. I am good. Good. World Cup's been very quiet over here. It's not as other World Cups I've been. It's like every bar would be mobbed right now, especially it's somebody like Brazil or Argentina or something like that playing. Even when Canada got played, there was interest for the first game, and people have not really been bothering here. You know what I'm seeing anyway, and that's really, really unusual because it's been much crazier times and way, way better supported. So, yeah,
it was.
That is weird.
I think with it being the first tournament Canada had been at in a long time, it would be like just electric the entire time they were in there. But no, not to be. But of course, the World Cup is coming to Canada in 4 years' time as part of the triple hosts: Mexico, US, and Canada. So I'm sure it'll definitely
that'll be class.
Yeah, that will be good. That will be.
I'll be brilliant here.
But
you must be looking forward to that. You must be looking forward to that, Liam. That'll be class.
I think so, yeah. I mean, they've had the FIFA, I think the Olympics was in Toronto. They did all the football there when they had the Olympics. So that's the only time I think there's ever been a major tournament, anything like that. I think under 16 World Cup, Women's World Cup.
Yeah.
But having the Men's World Cup here would be absolutely amazing. It's so set up for it, and Canadians would actually go off their head for it. So we'll see. Looking forward to it.
It should be a good one. And say, speaking of good, this World Cup in particular, we're going to be talking about tonight, 2014, one of my favourite ones. But maybe it's also down to the fact that 2010 was such a negatively played tournament. So many teams were setting out just not to lose in that tournament. 2014, being in Brazil, it had to be all about attacking football, and some of the moments, some of the goals in this tournament are absolutely phenomenal. So looking forward to getting into it. But before we do, I've got a wee quick trivia question for you guys. There's only 5 answers on this one as well. So it's not too taxing, I feel, but it's a geography-related question.
Okay.
Geography, okay.
I love these.
Yeah. So, really simple one here. Can you name all of the cities to have hosted a World Cup final that are not a capital city? And there's only 5.
All the cities to host
the World Cup final that are
World Cup final
not a capital city.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah, not the capital city. Because it's tradition that usually it would go to the capital city, but I've looked through the history of the tournaments, and 5 times the tournament has not been played in the capital city of the host country. So that's what I'm looking for tonight.
I could give you one, Phil. I could give you one, Phil.
Go.
If you wish, just now.
Aye. Los Angeles.
Yeah, Pasadena, Los Angeles, 1994. Yeah, so you only need 4 answers now for the end of the show, guys, but we'll come back to that at the end. But yeah, LA, Pasadena, the Rose Bowl, Brazil, Italy, that final with the Baggio penalty miss, that is the one. But no, we will crack into it. But before we quickly do, I must remind all of the viewers, as usual, Russell, you know what I'm going to say, mate, to do all that good stuff.
Good stuff. Love it, mate.
Exactly, yeah. So, of course, if you are new to the bus, you've happened to just discover us, then where have you been all our lives? Come on board, hit that subscription button, take a seat, grab your ticket, you'll enjoy the ride. Of course, if you're a long-time viewer of the bus, then hit that like button. You know the drill by now. Helps us massively with the algorithm, gets the word of the bus out there. Obviously, get involved in the live comment section tonight. It's going to be a bit of a struggle up against the live football that's going on right now, and it's one of the more exciting games. But either way, if you want to get involved in the comments, then that's absolutely fine. I say my plan is, I said earlier on, by the time extra time and penalties finish, we'll be into the main crux of the show anyway, so it could work out in our favour, that one. And yeah, of course, if you wish to share the link of the Bhoycie Bus, then by all means do so on any social media platform going at the moment. So yeah, now that's all out the way, guys. Let's get cracking into this one now. As it turns out, we've actually been in 2014 before on Bustalgia, but Russell, I know it was a show that you weren't on because we did Ronnie Dyler's first season before, and that would have started in 2014. Yeah, it would indeed. So
that was good.
Again, as normal, I'll just run through the big winners in the world of football to start, and it was another Real Madrid and Seville double in the old European trophies. Because again, if you're just going to guess who won the Champions League or who won the Europa League, Real Madrid and Seville are always a good place to start, and it was no different.
Really?
No different, mate. Yeah, Real Madrid beat Atletico 4-1 in the final held in Lisbon. That was La Decima, as they called it. It was the 10th European Cup / Champions League in their history. So they decimated their local rivals, Atletico, in the final. Although it was 1 each up until 90 minutes, but in extra time, Real Madrid scored another 3 and went on win it 4-1. And in the Europa League, it was Sevilla defeating Benfica in Turin after quite a drab game, a 0-0, went to penalties, and that was the 3rd of their 6 Europa League trophies that they've won this century. It's quite a
that
dominant.
Is incredible. They really do. They dominate that too. They've dominated that tournament. They are synonymous with that. It's funny as well. It's like there's an irony in it that Seville, of course, is where we lost the final, and that's kind of synonymous when you think of the UEFA Cup as a Celtic fan as well. It's all very odd how it sort of crosses over, isn't it? It's mad. Because I'll be honest, when we went to Seville in 2003, I couldn't have named you one of their players. Sevilla. I couldn't have told you anything about them. And then they just seem to have this surge after we put their city on the map, you know?
Of course, yeah. Something else.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like fucking... Do you know what I mean? Like, they just seem to come out of nowhere. And, you know, to dominate the second most prestigious European trophy in the manner they have, it's no mean feat. It's quite astonishing how many times we've reflected on Bustalgia and, like, you say it for a laugh, Phil, you know, guess who won the UEFA Cup or the Europa League? But it's actually mental. Do you know what I mean? How much dominance they've had of it, which is effectively a group stage in a knockout tournament format like that. I mean, it's difficult to dominate that type of format of tournament. Do you know what I mean? A team dominating a league or having an era where they're winning the majority of league titles. You see that in every country. But a European trophy, to see it dominated like this by a team up to their recent successes of the last, decade and a half, probably hadn't really achieved all that much. I forgive my ignorance, but I don't think so. It's mad.
Definitely not.
They just came out of nowhere and owned that tournament.
And Liam, they're not a team that spend massive amounts. You never see Seville breaking transfer records in Spain when they're up against Barca, Real, Atletico. They seem to spend within their means, or they've either got a really good academy or scouting system where they can sign players kind of under the radar and sell them on for a big profit. Player trading model. We've heard that one before, but Seville seem to be very good at it with some of the players that they've churned out over the years.
It's when they got rid of that Pedro Lawel guy.
Pedro Lawel, yeah.
Yeah. You can see right about the same time. He must have came back. He must have came back with him, right? Yeah, I don't know. Seville's one of the teams that you look at just got, wish we could emulate them. Is it luck? Is it whatever? And the whole Spanish league at that point as well. I mean, Real Madrid dominating the way they do, and then Seville coming out there and being just as a force in Europe, whereas you didn't want to draw any Spanish team. It wasn't like there was one big one. All of them had the potential to do you in, as we've seen with, Villarreal and Valencia and stuff. And Barcelona was also, it wasn't a one-horse race. Certainly wasn't that.
It'd be fair to say, when you're talking about the recruitment and things, obviously they've had an eye for a shrewd signing or that. I mean, I just want to put it out there that there is a Croatian international right back available for transfer. Bidding starts at, I don't know, £300 zillion. I wonder if teams like Sevilla, will be looking at Big Joseph as well.
Ivan Rakitic is back at Sevilla these days. Maybe he'll be having a word in the manager's ear saying, right back.
There you go. Exactly, yeah, Rakitic.
Rakitic. He is back there as a player. He won the Europa League in 2014 with them as the captain, then transferred to Barcelona that summer, wins the Champions League 2015, has a good few years at Barca, but now he's back at Seville for like the sort of twilight of his career. He's back there now. He's still playing, but he's not at this World Cup. He's not at the World Cup. He's But no, I think he's 35, although you're the age person, Russell. You're the one with the dates above, but I think he's 34, 35, around about that region. But yeah, he is there at Seville, so maybe he'll have a wee word and say, by the way, that right back that they've got at Celtic might be worth looking at. Never know, but yeah,
you never know, mate.
You never know, mate, who's looking, saying what price we're going to get.
Well, if he plays like that in the World Cup semi-final, fucking hell.
Yeah, I know. I said last night, DNF, mate, I said 15 million, and I says as an outside the realms possibility. Who knows? Maybe after that tonight, could be more.
Oh, hey,
Did
you see the first half though? Huh? If it wasn't for that offside decision, it'd be a different story. Right, Juranovic, the whole storyline completely changes if that boy's offside, because he's jumping with his hand out in the penalty area and it hits into his hand. That was that was us. That would be the story, right? That's what would be given against us. We wouldn't have got the offside. We got the whole, and then that's a different. And he's no hero then, is he? I mean, I'm not trying to bump down his price by any means, but I agree with some of our fellow bus members as well that take the money and run. I think he's a great wee hype job we've done with him. So I'd take it. I thought he looked good bombing forward on about 2 runs, but I still nervy at the back,
I've got to change my tune a wee bit on it, Liam. I've got to change my tune. I thought he was brilliant today. I watched the full game and I'll be honest though, just as you know, as to try and be slightly consistent in what I've said about Janovic. I've never seen him play that well for Celtic. Never.
Yeah.
That was a better performance today than I think I've seen him capable of or ever producing a Celtic shirt. Which
a man possessed. Sevilla, pick up the phone, give us a call. Come on, come on, he's available. Big bucks. Come on, you've got the money. Spanish league team, come on down and buy him. But we'll see what the future holds for Josip Juranovic. But this 2014 season had a bit of an eventful ending because there's a guy we'll be talking about tonight who he was a pantomime villain for many reasons at the World Cup, but he was also heavily involved in, of course, the finale of the English Premier League that season, because that is the year that Brendan Rodgers' Liverpool go very, very, very close to winning the Premier League, but they are a Steven Gerrard slip and they collapse Selhurst Park away from doing it, because people do forget it wasn't the Chelsea game and the Gerrard slip that cost them the title. It did do some serious
fun in
damage.
that though, Phil? Where's the fun in saying that though? Come
on. They lost that game 2-0 and then they went to Crystal Palace, still with it in their hands, 3-0 up at half-time, and then a Tony Pulis masterclass in the second half. Crystal Palace got it back to 3 apiece. And that was it. It was in Man City's hands going into the last day. And not as eventful as the 2012 conclusion. Man City wrapped the title up pretty convincingly with a win against West Ham. And Liverpool were close. But Luis Suarez, he was, him and Daniel Sturridge in particular, were lethal that season. I say going into this World Cup, he's probably like the most red-hot centre-forward in the world at that stage. And he'll be making a lot of headlines in the 2014 World Cup.
Yes.
And then the FA Cup final, Aaron Ramsey, when his legs could still function, scored the winning goal for Arsenal to win their first trophy since 2005. They beat Hull City in the FA Cup final after being 2-0 down. Came back and won it 3-2. Manchester City won the League Cup when they beat Sunderland 3-1 in the final. Now in Scotland, it's a bit of an eventful one, Russell, because Neil Lennon, his first tenure came to an end abruptly at the end of the 2014 season out of nowhere. It just seemed to be an announcement that he was leaving. We won the league that season, but we didn't have the best of times in the cups because St Johnstone won the Scottish Cup and Aberdeen won the League Cup after a dreadful 0-0 draw with Inverness at Celtic Park, and they won it on penalties. So St Johnstone beat Dundee United. But we were knocked out of both of the tournaments by Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup and Greenock Morton in the League Cup. It wasn't the best of the ones, but that was Neil's end of his first tenure as Celtic manager. What's your feelings around that ending? Do you think it was the writing was on the wall? Because I was quite sidetracked, but I didn't see it coming. It seemed a bit out of nowhere, and the stories at the time were he'd had a meeting with the board and they were telling about the downsizing was going to continue, because I believe this is maybe, or is it the next season that Rangers blew it in the playoff final, isn't it? Or is it this summer that they blew it in the playoff final? So they were staying down for another year. But it's around about this time. But Lennon walking out at that time, what was your feelings?
I think he had grown. I think as well with all managers at Celtic, I think there is an expiry date on them. I think there's a sort of a period of time where Scottish football can rock your boat, and then I do think there comes a time where kind of have pushed the boundaries as far as you can, particularly when at that point in time as well the guy above him isn't going to back him the way he knows he needs back to take the club forward. Neil Lennon, I think, in this spell as manager has, of course, took us to the last 16 of the Champions League 2 seasons before, and it's slowly regressing after that. And I mean, you only need to look at the players that then came in the 2014-15 season, such as Kazim Richards, Carlton Cole and stuff. If Lennon had any sense about him, which of course, for as much as maligned as he is, he's a very intelligent man. There's no getting away from it. He is bright. And if he thought that's what's coming down the pipe, the sort of players that the board are going to be suggesting to him, he's not going to be featuring any more last 16s of the Champions League and things like this. So I wasn't overly surprised when he left. I think the manner of it was a bit of a surprise. But do you know what? I get bold of saying that all the time as well, Phil, because the manner of someone leaving is what we fucking say about every single person that leaves Celtic. Do you know what I mean? There is, at the end of the day, there comes to be an end of your cycle. And I think he left at the right time. If he's lost a wee bit of interest, and I think Lennon was someone as well over those 2 decades who was synonymous with the battles with your rivals, and they didn't pay their bills and have ended up on the journey and all this bullshit, whatever they want to call it. I don't care. But them not being in the league, I think for someone like an ambitious manager at this point, young manager, Lennon's the type of guy who believes he's hype. He probably thought he was. After getting to the last 16, probably thought he was the next Pep Guardiola. Do you know what I mean? So without that competition in the league as well, I mean, I know we'll get to it, but what did we win the league by? 29 points?
29 points ahead of Motherwell that season.
I mean, you are going to get bored eventually, I think, in my opinion, when on the European side of things, the club ain't going to back you with the sort of tools to go out and make another assault on that, despite you having that on your record only 2 years before, which I think's pretty disappointing. From the board's point of view, I suppose they just thought, well, we're not going to be able to get players of a really high level because of that lack of competition in the league, and therefore we'd need to pay over the odds, which, as we all know, they will never do. But yeah, Lennon left, and it was time to herald in a new era.
It was Ronnie Deila era, but Liam, you might remember that Neil Lennon also spent that summer as a pundit for BBC at this World Cup. I wonder if that was a sort of deliberate move when he was trying to make sure he was in the public eye to remind people I'm available, because it didn't quite, I don't know if maybe Neil Lennon felt that he could just walk into another job right away, but obviously he didn't appear at Bolton until, I want to say, November 2014, October, November time. It was quite a wait, wasn't it, Liam?
Something happened in the plan there. I mean, that seemed like a really good plan. Everything that he'd done, checked off, right? Taking a big scalp, took Barcelona, check, won undisputed points and that. Didn't he show up too good in the cups? Yeah. But he didn't seem to bother him, He looked like he had his big objectives and that was it. And everything else was maybe just gravy or that. He didn't seem to be a big cup guy. He was all about winning. And then I think when he went to that World Cup, I think he thought maybe punditry, some of his football philosophy at that point. Who knows what jobs he might have turned down or what promises other people had made him at that point. But something happened. Either better people or more experienced people came available at the same time and he became a risk. Or, I don't know, something happened during the punditry where just like, oh, okay, well, maybe his philosophy is not what we thought it was, or with that, how it comes across either in front of the telly or behind closed doors. You never know, right? And then, it just sort of go wrong, because with all the stuff that he'd done in Scotland, what he'd done with Barcelona and that, before he went on TV, he seemed like an ideal candidate. And I think he really thought in his head that's right. He spent a long, long time in Glasgow for somebody that's not from there. And maybe he just thought, I'm ready to go to that next level. And, just somehow, it just didn't happen for him.
Was he not linked heavily with Norwich City?
I don't know. I don't remember. I remember.
I think he was. I think
did Lambert get the job at Norwich around about that time?
I think we're now close here. I'm sure Norwich were either the lower end of the Premier League or the upper end of the Championship at the time. I think it was lower end Premier League, to be honest. And I think that one maybe fell through, and after that, that's where he had to lower his expectation. But I think Lennon was convinced he was going to go into a lower end EPL job, and in the end he went to a bankrupt Bolton. Do you know what I mean?
He did. But popping up in punditry, that's interesting. A bit reminiscent of another former Celtic manager who gets a lot of mentions in this show, Martin O'Neill, because funny enough, Russell, this is the same World Cup where he's doing ITV punditry. And he sits alongside Patrick Vieira and Fabio Cannavaro, and that absolute plant pot, Adrian Childs, try to have a bit of banter with him. And it's like, you're playing with fire here, son. You're playing with fire with this guy. And of course, he absolutely rinses all of them. And that's the infamous, I've got 2 European Cups. How many have these guys got? So none between them. It's this World Cup.
It's funny he's went in armed with that as well. Like he's already envisaged at some point, I'll be the target for that dafty because he can't help himself, that Adrian Child. Let's find a stat that works in my favour. And O'Neill just goes in with a loaded Tommy guns, doesn't he? And he had them sitting.
He does indeed. Has them absolutely on toast there. Absolutely rinsed them, something awful. But I'll quickly just round up the other football winners before we move on. So in Spain, it was Atletico Madrid won it that year. They pipped Barcelona and Real Madrid, the second last game of the season. It might have been the last game it came down to. They had a game at the Nou Camp where they had to win. And Diego Godin scores the winning goal for Atletico to win them the title. I guess against a very strong Barca and a strong Real Madrid. You managed to see them off. In Italy, of course, it was Juventus. In Germany, it was Bayern Munich. They're still on that run just now of titles, that Bayern Munich team.
Just
France,
very quickly, Phil.
Yeah.
Very quickly, just because it ties in what you were saying. Talking about Martin O'Neill, I remember his punditry that year of 2014. He was obsessed with Godin. I don't know if you remember this. He was obsessed with him. He was like, he's the best defender in the world. Now, I think it was because Godin was like one of the last, him and the Italian defender. What's
Chiellini?
Chiellini. I think they were the last of a dying breed of sort of defenders. See, now they're all footballers, right? But I think Godin, but O'Neill, I can remember so well how often he would go on about Godin going, best defender in the world. And I was like, he loves him because that would have been his type of player. Do you know what I mean? Like that was
pure shithouser, pure shithouser, Godin. But he scores a winning goal in the game between Uruguay and Italy at this World Cup. So the one when Chiellini gets bit by Suarez. So there's a link for you right there. But Godin scores a winner in that one. But he was good for a goal at a corner.
It just tied in. Just tied in with the punditry thing. It reminded me that Godin was his favourite. I'm sure Martin O'Neill would have played him left wing, to be fair. But no, he does. He scores a winner for Atletico Madrid to wrap up the title for them. So a bit of a surprise, really. Atletico a strong team anyway. In Portugal, of course, it was Benfica. In the Netherlands, it was Ajax. Now, the last show we did last week, Liam, it was Lionel Messi off the back of a double Ballon d'Or. And this time it's Cristiano Ronaldo with back-to-back Ballon d'Ors. He was the holder in 2013, and after the 2014 World Cup, he won it again. So a few pop culture headlines, so forth. I have no idea what the number one single is. I've never ever heard of it. Apparently it's by an artist called Second City. Never even heard of them, so I don't know. I'm obviously too old for that type of stuff. But I have heard of the person that was number one on the album chart. It was Sam Smith with the album In the Lonely Hour, and the top film at the box office on the day the World Cup kicked off on the 12th of June 2014 was 22 Jump Street. Of course, the sequel to 21 Jump Street. I've seen that one. Very good comedy, that one. Headline acts, of course, at Tea in the Park that year were Biffy Clyro, Ed Sheeran, Calvin Harris, Arctic Monkeys, on the let's see, Paul Nutini, Pharrell Williams, Jake Bugg, Paul Weller. He pops up a lot. He pops up a lot in these festival recaps we do. The Kaiser Chiefs and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Glastonbury. It was Arcade Fire, Metallica, Kasabian, and also a massive shout out to Dolly Parton, who had the legend slot on the main stage at Glastonbury that year. But yeah, that was good.
And this is also the year, and I think I said this when we did the Ronnie Dyler season. I said on that Tea in the Park, Franz Ferdinand are in the King Tut's tent, and there is a video of them doing Take Me Out, and the crowd is absolutely fucking electric in it. It's one of the best live performances you'll ever see. So do yourself a favour and look that one up at some point, because I mean, it's good. I know they've done the main stage at Tea in the Park and stuff like that, but there's something better about it being sort of inside and the King Tut.
I get that.
The atmosphere inside there looked fan-fucking-tastic. Now, of course, in 2014, a couple of big headlines. The Commonwealth Games came to Glasgow. I actually went to a few of the events. It was actually really good with all the different people coming into the city. The real buzz about the place. The weather was fantastic. But it was a good event for the Scottish team because they finished fourth in the medal table. Only Canada, Australia, and England finished ahead of them. I was actually at the whole boxing finals, the gold medal matches on the last day. So we and my mate went to the full thing from like 12 in the afternoon right through 8 at night. That's the one where is it Josh Taylor? He's a professional boxer now, isn't he? He won a gold there, and another boy named Charlie Flynn won a gold. I don't think he's became pro, but he's infamous for he gave a shout out to his mates in the Royal Mail Post Office because that's where he worked. He did his interview afterwards. He's like, big shout out, man, to all his pals and all that. But I just a proper wee like Glasgow kid. He was only like a early 20s, you know, and this wee guy. He's won a gold medal at the Commonwealth Games in the boxing. But I remember his post fight interview where he's like giving a shout out to all his mates in the collection office, the Royal Mail collection office. I was like, fair play to you, man. You go back with your medal on Monday and show them all. It's a fucking phenomenal story. And also, of course, it's summer of 2014. Scotland was asked a very simple question: should it be independent from the rest of the United Kingdom? And they felt compelled to vote no. And here we are, still fighting against the Tories, trying to get away from them. But we're not a political podcast, even though I went a bit political the other week, talking about the state of politics. So I'm not going to go down that route again.
All I'll say about that vote, right? And it's not because I can't avoid going into arguments about it and that. What I learned from it was, though, so many of your pals, my pals are liars, right? Because if you really think about it, if you went on any social media or you had any conversation, Bob, everyone and their nan was voting yes, right? Everyone was. Which clearly the voting result proof wasn't the case. And secondly, I think it was the cool thing to do to say you were, but trust me, folk, I think we're going in and putting a wee cross in the no wearing a kilt. Do you know what I mean? I'm convinced that. Am I freezing a lot, by the way?
No, it's not too bad. No, it's all right. Fine. The audio's still coming through anyway. As long as we can hear you at least for the time being, and that's all that matters just now. But occasional wee phrase here and there, but no much. But you know
what I mean, the way. Like, I think folk were like, that folk were dressed up like William Wallace, then going in and putting a no. I think there was a lot of that, man, because I owned the boozer at the time, and the vibe amongst. I'm talking, it was the only thing that was spoke about for about 6 months leading up to that. Now, whatever people's persuasion are, I'm not here to judge that, right? What I would say, though, is I genuinely, if I took a note or just put a wee tally map beside yes or no voters, from my customers, I would have said it was about a 90-10. 90-10 voting yes.
Yeah.
Now, that clearly can't have been the case.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Definitely
It can't have been. I think there was I think the problem with the yes movement at the time, I think what they got it a wee bit wrong was it became a bit aggressive, I think. And I don't mean physically aggressive. I think some of the language used, like you're a cunt or whatever if you didn't vote this or whatever. I think that attitude is maybe what just dissuade some folk, but I think they had a compelling argument. Do you know what I mean? And I think like they should have just played to their strengths on that. And I think at times it got a bit to the point, and this is why it comes down to people are saying they're voting yes because they couldn't be asked the hassle of admitting that they were going to vote no, and then obviously the proof was in the pudding then. But it was an experience that year that going on, because it was a huge cultural shift for the country. You didn't know what was going to be happening, and I was convinced, honestly convinced, that was going to be the yes that won that, and it wasn't. Did you watch that from Bulgaria or Canada, Liam?
I was in Canada. I was physically sick for days.
Oh,
really,
man.
So, I mean, it has an impact in my life, right? Because my European passport was good for me. Now I have to go and get Bulgarian residency. You know, all right, do it, but it would have been there before. And it's not just about easy. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand how people could vote no for something like that. And I know I don't live there, so my point of view is pretty. But, you know, I'll tell you something was funny. I worked with a lassie. I had a lassie I hired as a junior art director, came in, and she says, oh, I was in Scotland I did it at university in Edinburgh. I go, aye. And she was telling me she lived there. And then she was telling me she got to vote in the referendum. I go, what do you mean you voted in the referendum? She says, well, because I was living there, I got to vote yes or no. I said, so what did you vote for? And she went, oh, I voted no. So why was that? Well, my dad's English, and, you know, and having a British passport for me to come there, that was how I got to go to school and stuff like that. Okay, I can see that. That's how your point, you know, it's skewed somewhat different, but yeah, it just really pissed me off that I wasn't allowed to vote on something as important than that. And then I over there without, it's like no real interest in it other than, you know, something that might be a nice holiday destination, you know, and did get a chance to vote. So, yeah, it was very isolated over here when that happened. There was a number of us Scots that just all sort of got together and had a couple of drinks, and everybody, I didn't know anybody. Actually, no, I met one guy who was a Heart supporter, and he was right into voting for no. And then, you know, as per usual as well, the only other ones I've seen showed up, and guys I knew that supported Rangers, but for some reason they had went staunch on the no vote, which I could not understand for the life of me.
Yep.
I'll be totally honest with you though, Liam. I think that's an observation you're making there that is completely prevalent. It's completely accurate.
Yeah.
I think still in Scotland to this point in time, and I'm not blaming either side of this, either set of supporters for this, but I genuinely think a lot of the yes and no stuff was based on who do you support.
What football team you support?
Rangers fans couldn't vote yes, and Celtic fans couldn't vote no. That is fucking toxic for a country's independence vote to come down to stuff like that, you know. And that's not me. That is not me pinning that on Rangers fans, by the way. I think that is the combination there. You know, the Old Firm brand and all this stuff. That is it at its absolute worst, where it's overtaking your political mind's landscape, you know, to actually influence it that greatly. I struggle with that.
Loads of my pals and family are Rangers supporters, so I get that as well too. It's the toxic culture, the Hugh Keevans and all that sort of like always has to just marginalise the fan base. It has to be black or white, us and them all the time. And I'm not saying I'm going to and start hugging them in the streets and all that, but I think that you have to just sort of lose that mindset at some point as well too, when you're looking for something for the common good, like a vote on independence. Like, how could that be fractured? That going back to that sort of black-white narrative, you either this or that, right? It's so binary type thinking, you know.
And that's really counterproductive to an actual situation where we became the first country in the history of the world, like ever, to not vote for its own independence. The only country and the first country ever, and it's Scotland. And you're like, wait now. Like, there's and again, this isn't me having a pop at Rangers supporters in any way, shape, or form, but I just believe a lot of their fans who voted no, and by the way, a percentage of the voters who voted yes as well. But because the no vote won, that's why I'm kind of turning my attention to that. But I do think a lot of those votes were made purely because the Tims are voting. The Tims are voting the other one. Oh, and that really numbs my brain a wee bit, because I'm like, I have to be in an environment, and whether that be the country or a pub, that the level of IQ is just a wee bit higher than that. Do you know what I mean? Whereas football team supporting doesn't come in here thinking we're making such a huge call. And you know what? I think as well, what it's done is dilute any further independence movement. I know that it's getting stronger apparently and all that, but as far as I'm concerned, don't get me wrong, if given the opportunity, I would vote yes again. Wink. No, I would. I would. But what I'll say is, surely then if it went yes, the English government would have a right to take it to sudden death, penalties, whatever you like, and say, well, best of three, mate.
The rubber match.
You just keep getting to vote until you get your way. And then once you get your way, that's that shutter pulled down. And that's where I think that, it becomes a bit flawed. Whereas I think because the 2014 one was such a one-off moment, I think if it happens then, we all just shake hands and we move on and we go our separate ways and we get on with it. Whether it had been good, bad, indifferent is irrelevant. But now if there's a repeat, a second leg, if you like, and we were to win it, well, that's one win each. And I think they would have every right to cast up a decider. And before you know it, you're actually not moving anywhere. You're not moving in any direction. As part of the union,
circles,
or as part of, or independently, you're going round in circles, Phil. Anyway, that's about as much as my political intake or input will ever be on here, and it's as normally simplified to suit my simple wee brain.
And that was the state of politics with Russell Bhoycie, everybody. But fun fact: we played Red Bull Salzburg in a Europa League game on the night of that vote. It was a Thursday night game, and we drew 2-2 in Salzburg with Mubarak Wakaso, who plays at this World Cup, scoring an absolute screamer on his debut for the club. Remember under Ronnie. September 14th. That's September 2014. That was the same night we played Salzburg in a Europa League game on the same night as Independence vote. Now, a couple other news headlines.
Yep.
2014, of course, is the first year when Russia began moving troops into the Ukraine. They take over the Donbass region, where, of course, Shakhtar are based. Shakhtar Donetsk and obviously Crimea. It's quite relevant now because it's led to a full-scale conflict going on over there. Also in 2014, Malaysian Airlines didn't have a good year. 2 of their flights, one was shot down over the Ukraine because it was an active war zone, and another one went missing off radar over the Indian Ocean earlier in the year as well. So not the best of years for Malaysian Airlines. Few celebrity deaths as well.
That was mental, that as well.
That was. They took ages to find the one in the
we
Indian Ocean.
We need to do like we'll get you to be our new Jesse Ventura. In fact, maybe you'd be even better to Liam. You could be the conspiracy theory with Liam the Punk Duck Warlord.
Yeah. That one with the Indian Ocean was weird. It disappeared, and it's like, all the technology we've got, how can nobody find it?
What is going on? That is mental.
Aye, so and then later in the year, say there's one that was shot down over the Ukraine that was traveling to, I think it was traveling to Singapore, but it was shot down over Ukraine because again of the active war or conflict that was going on. But some celebrity death. Robin Williams died that year. Also Oscar-winning actor Philip Seymour Hoffman, British comedy actor Rick Mayall, and Peaches Geldof also died in 2014. And also, this is the year that F1 legend Michael Schumacher suffered a skiing accident that's had him in a coma ever since. And you think all the years he spent driving cars around a track really fast at close to 200 miles per hour, and it was a skiing accident, obviously hit his head on a rock, and he's been in a coma ever since. But yeah, that was 2014. That's how long ago that was. Now, regarding the tournament, what Celtic connections should we be looking out for in this tournament? Past, present, and perhaps future as well. There might be somebody quite significant at this World Cup.
The players... A penalty scorer, really. I cannot remember him scoring this penalty, but I seen it when I was doing my homework, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous George.
Indeed.
I had no idea he scored at this World Cup.
He scored against Ivory Coast, I want to say it was. A late penalty to send Greece through and Ivory Coast out. But yeah, the 4 Celtic players that are going to Brazil are, of course, Georgios Samaras with Greece, Efe Ambrose with Nigeria, where he will be up against Lionel Messi in Argentina. Emilio Izagirre is away with Honduras, and Fraser Forster was in the England squad, albeit he wasn't getting a game. But funny enough, the guy that was playing for England in goal is our current goalkeeper. So that's kind of came full circle, that one. Now, former Celtic players that did go. Landry Nguemo was in the Cameroon squad, and Ki Sung-young was in the South Korea squad. And as for future Celtic players or people with a future Celtic connection to look out for at this tournament, we had Joe Hart, obviously in goal for England. We talked about him last week in the Euro 2012 one. Christian Gamboa, who's playing for Costa Rica, and gets an assist against Uruguay.
Yes.
Mubarak Wakaso, who I just mentioned, with Ghana. And some Australian manager named Ange something. He's at this tournament. You got to wonder if he's going to have any significant role to play in Celtic's future, but apparently he does. This is the tournament. This is the one.
I thought Ange was the 2010.
Nope, 2014. This is the one against Chile, Netherlands, and Spain. He's in the same group with them. So yes, this is the one.
How have I got that so wrong? I was convinced he was 2010.
No, 2014. This is the one, man. This is the one that everyone talks about, and I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. Yeah, because I also going to be talking about that in the second part of the show, because that is an interesting one where we'll get on to it. We'll get on to my feelings on that one when we look back on it. But yeah, this is the tournament where he's at, the one that you've heard many podcasts talking about his style of play and, you know, how he took the game to Spain and whatnot, but we'll get onto it. We'll get onto it in a wee while. So let's do a quickly pre-tournament roundup, all the other things we do. Usually the how did Scotland not qualify this time segment, because once again it was another disappointment for Scotland. Before we do, we'll obviously touch on the Nike advert, because I feel that this Nike advert was a step up on the 2012 one, which me and Liam looked at last week. This one is their winner stays on themed campaign, where you've got the two teams down the park having a kickabout, and one of them says the captains, will call them, is like, okay, winners stay on. So then one of them goes, well, in that case, I'm Cristiano Ronaldo, and then like flick you a switch, turns into Cristiano Ronaldo. The other goes, well, in that case, I'm Neymar, so he turns into Neymar. And in the end, you end up with Ronaldo, Neymar, Wayne Rooney, Zlatan, Gonzalo Higuain, Eden Hazard, Gerard Piqué, David Luiz, Andres Iniesta, Mario Götze, Andrea Pirlo, Thiago Silva, Tim Howard, Thibaut Courtois, and even the Incredible Hulk made an appearance in the advert, much like the 2010 one, where they had some pop culture stuff. Because, yeah, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is really starting to bubble at this point. So, yeah, the Incredible Hulk even appears. But, yeah, the whole advert is just basically, they just shout out what player they are, and it changes into them, and it just turns into a big, fracas by the end of it. But it's that one.
See, just also talking about qualifying, I think I'm right here. Did Portugal qualify having played a playoff against the Swedes?
Rings a bell.
I remember watching. I know for a fact they played in a playoff to qualify for a tournament. I think it was this one. And it was like Zlatan, who would have been about 32. Well, I'm saying he might have been, he was born in 81 in October, so he was 32, right? And Ronaldo, peak Ronaldo, 28, 29 years old, right?
Yeah.
And they two basically have what we like to call a slobber knocker.
Oh, yeah.
And in Sweden, and they just go hell for leather. Basically, those two just go head to head. It's like they may as well just go rid of the other players. Zlatan gets 2. I think Ronaldo scored 2. And Portugal went through 3-2 or something like that in Sweden. The game, but it was like, see, watching brilliance, like when the pressure's on, and they both have the captain's armband on, and you watching those guys going, see, the bigger the occasion or the bigger the deal, these guys get fucking better, and that's what separates the best for the best.
It does. It does.
Yeah, Nike advertising brought up a thing that year where they were trying to talk to people at FIFA to like do something like a UNICEF team or something like that. So people like Zlatan, whose team didn't qualify for the World Cup, would still get a chance to be in the world's biggest showcase. I mean, advertising and marketing, right? So it's like if you've got a guy that's in the front of FIFA 2014 and his team doesn't qualify for the World Cup, or the years George Best never, stuff like that, you've got still a chance to see all the best players in the world, and they represent like a world team, UNICEF or something like that. And that was the first time. It was because they were really pissed that he was such a massive star. So I never went as big as the other. The Sweden qualifying for World Cups and stuff.
Yep, that's a great point. That's a great point, because that's what Nike are doing. They're going, well, your country might miss out on the tournament, but we ain't going to miss out on the opportunity to get you on the marketing campaign, because Zlatan at that point, I think, for me, he was Ballon d'Or worthy. If he wasn't at PSG, he was he was pound for pound, I think, the best striker in the world, as an out-and-out number 9. Which at this point, you need to remember, Ronaldo hadn't formed into a number 9 as of yet. He was still coming for wide left for Real Madrid, scoring shed loads. Messi's never been an out-and-out striker. But I think at this point, Zlatan missing this World Cup was a real pity, because I think he would have went in there and I think he would have rocked some boats. And the Swedes have a mad, as you know, I love Sweden and all that shite. They always have a way of getting out their group. And I think Zlatan at this moment in time, he's peaked about 31, 32. Ironically, similar to Henrik. So I don't know what olive oil they put on their fucking toast in the morning, you know what I mean? But they both seem to peak, in their early 30s as opposed to in their late 20s or mid-20s or whatever. And I think Zlatan at this World Cup, had fortune been on his side and they hadn't met Portugal in the playoff, I think would have really been one heck of an addition to this tournament. I think Sweden would have done okay. I think they would have done okay, Phil.
I think as well in this advert, some of the players are in the international kits and then some of them are in their club kits. I think also it's a sponsorship thing, because like Gonzalo Higuain appears in it's not even like the Napoli kit, but it's like, because that's what he's playing for at that point, but it's just like a generic blue. And Eden Hazard's got like a generic red shirt, but it's not the Belgium one. But then Zlatan's in the PSG kit, Neymar's in a Brazil kit, but Iniesta appears in the Barcelona kit, and it's just like, it's all over the place with like the sponsorship in it. But I noticed that
they can only wear Nike.
They wear Nike ones, aye.
So they're just trying to pan it out as much as they can, I mean, you know, you got to remember as well, Zlatan is also his box office as well.
Oh yeah,
yes.
He was playing it. He was the one. Everybody, I am Zlatan. You know, YouTube was off, and everybody, you know, it was Zlatan doing kung fu kicks, you know, and you know, inside the changing room and stuff, and so he knew how to sort of take a stranglehold in the media as well. So for somebody with that presence not to be there,
it's a pity.
I realised it more. Zlatan's last Zlatan, right? And in the world of Patrick Swayze's be Mickey Rourke, right? That's Zlatan.
Do you remember what he did when he signed for LA Galaxy? He took out a full page in like the LA Gazette, and it was just like, "Dear Los Angeles, you're welcome." Signed Zlatan. That's all it was. Then he was doing the talk show round, going on like Jimmy Kimmel and stuff like that. And it's like, this is a soccer player, you know, going on these late night talk shows, and it's like, what a guy, you know. I love Zlatan, love him. But I remember when he signed for the LA Galaxy, he did that. Is it good? I
am Zlatan. That's what it's called.
Nice.
And it was
modest as always.
I read that on the way to Vegas, and it was, you know, see with a couple of drinks in you, your pals are KOing, I've beat them at Monopoly and all that shit, you know what I mean? And then I'm like, right, I'm going to get towed into this book for a bit, because I bought it at the airport, and see, it was like 2 hours of my life is gone on this flight, gone. I was immersed. I just thought, he came over, he was telling you stuff that I just don't think people have the courage or the convictions to say anymore. Do you know what I mean? He was like the last of the Bohemians, Liam. Do you know what I mean? Like, footballers don't talk like this anymore. Like, they don't have the bollocks to say what they actually think. And by the way, the penalties Gary Brown's keeping us up to date with. Sorry to go off topic, but Argentina have missed their fourth. So
Holland have got to score this. I'm watching it right now. They've got to score to basically keep in it, or Argentina can win it on the next one. But he's running up, and he has scored. Yeah, so Argentina scored this. They're through.
I want the Dutch to go through. Big Van Dijk's a hero of mine, man. I don't know. Did you see the? Sorry, I know we're going off topic, but who cares? Did you see the scramash, Liam, when the Argentinian boy booted the ball into the dugout, and Van Dijk goes over, no push required. He just goes out with his chest and sends him flying. It reminded me of the cup semi-final against we were calling them Sevco then. And remember, who was the player? Ian Black.
Ian Black? Was it him?
Him or yeah, I think it was. It was Ian Black. Or was it the bald guy? I can't remember.
Nicky Law.
Yeah, Nicky Law. It was one of the two of them. And he just went flying, and you're like, he didn't even do that much there. But obviously the sheer size and power of him. But I loved that in the middle of the skirmish. He was too clever to raise his hands, but he knew just by running up, boof, take that.
Argentina have scored. They're through. Argentina just scored. Lautaro Martinez just put it away, I believe it was. But yeah, that's them. They are through to play Croatia. There you go. The Messi World Cup is still on. But yeah, we will be talking about him tonight at some point as well, because he came very, very close in 2014. But of course, I said earlier on, how did Scotland not qualify? Well, it's a running theme that I've mentioned on this, because at this time, we always seem to start the campaign with one manager and end it with a different manager. We sack them when the damage is already done. And this one, we started with Craig Levein, but after drawing at home with Serbia and Macedonia, then losing to Belgium and Wales, after 4 games, we were on 2 points, and he was given his jolters. Gordon Strachan came in to replace him, had a decent enough end. They beat Croatia home and away in the group, but it was all too little too late. But again, it gave you that whole Scottish thing of, well, we'll be ready for the next campaign. And spoiler, that didn't work out well for us either. But yeah, it's a typical thing for Scotland at this point. We keep on starting with one manager, realise it ain't working, and sack them when it's too late. But this is the campaign where it was that Wales game that I thought you were talking about the last time, where Gareth Bale scores a goal where Charlie Adam just backs off him, just keeps on backing off him. And it's like, don't give him too much space. And then Gareth Bale just pings it right in the top corner from about 25 yards, just absolutely thunder bastards it right in the top corner. And it's like, if you just went and tried to tackle him, but you kept backing off him the whole time. So, yeah, that was that campaign. But yeah,
I think when you live in a world where Craig Levein's the Scotland manager whilst Gordon Strachan's unemployed, You're not getting, the powers that be aren't doing their job right. It's that simple. When Craig Levein is the Scotland manager, it's someone who of Gordon Strachan's ability at the right age as well is sitting there unemployed. That is wrong. That was an obvious decision to make. An obvious one that should have been made far earlier. I actually didn't mind him as Scotland manager. I think the only thing, funnily enough, from a Celtic perspective, and whilst the outlook on this fella might be different now, I think he was very, very harsh on Lee Griffiths' appearance time in his tenure. And I think that actually bit him in the bollocks. It was obviously, again, it's a personality trait thing with Strachan. If he doesn't like the person, he struggles to see, the bigger picture. And I think he just didn't like Lee Griffiths as a person, and that's why he didn't play him. And I think, it took Lee Griffiths to score 41 goals for him to make his first Scotland start. That is incredible. And it's all in this sort of time spell. 2014, would you have just joined Celtic?
He joined us in January 2014,
2014. And that's after, 12 goals in the first half of the season for Wolves in League One? Something like that. Right. I mean, he was red hot even then, and that was someone who should have been part of Strachan's new era from the get-go and a focal point of it. And for whatever reason, he wasn't. But I think with the qualifications, Phil, Scotland make the decisions too late. Absolutely. They do. I agree with that.
And there's a running theme at this point. We start a campaign with George Burley, sack him midway through, bring in Levein, same again. We even did it with Bertie Vogts. We started a campaign with Bertie Vogts, sacked him, brought in Walter Smith, who had a strong finish to the campaign. And and then the next one was the one when Walter Smith leaves and Alex McLeish takes up the mantle and nearly gets us to Euro 2008. But it's another hard luck story for Scotland in this one. But I say it sets us up nicely for the qualification for Euro 2016. But as I said, spoiler there, that one doesn't end well for us neither. So just really quickly, the official song for this World Cup was by Pitbull. It's called We Are One, and the host cities. This is a bit where I try my best to pronounce these, but some of them are going to catch me out. So host cities in Brazil were Rio de Janeiro, Brasilia, Sao Paulo, Fortaleza, Belo Horizonte. I always loved that name, Belo Horizonte. Sounds brilliant. Salvador.
Me after a couple of pints.
Porto Alegre. That was another one that I liked how that one rolled off them. Porto Alegre. Recife, Suiba, Manaus, which is the one in the middle of the Amazon jungle, which is a controversial stadium.
Yes.
Natal, and one called Curitiba. So actually, I think it's 10 or 11 cities. But the Manaus one is in the middle of the Amazon. There is no local team that can take over the stadium after it's out of use. And it was like, what were they thinking? But that was some of the host cities. But some of the controversy around the stadiums, and it continued after this World Cup was finished, because to say some of the stadiums were just left to rot. Even the Maracana closed down for a period after the World Cup. The stadiums in the background tonight, the mecca of football, the Maracana, because of prices and stuff like that, they couldn't run it, and they left it to rot for a few years. Then finally a new buyer came along and reopened it. So thankfully the Maracana is up and running again. But there was a few years there where it was just left to just decay. I'm like, how can you allow this to happen?
Winning when that happens? That's what I don't get with stuff like this. And obviously maybe on an ignorant stage, I don't understand it all. But how can that benefit anyone? Someone's losing longer, so reduce your rates if it needs to be rented out or whatever. Reduce your rates and get it active. I mean, whoever's pumped all the money in to build these things, when they've lost out, and whoever's got the ownership of it, they're losing out if it's rotten. And there are some cracking stadiums at that tournament, Phil, you're spot on. And that's really surprising that some rotted for I don't get it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's still some. I say the one in the Amazon is just there's no local team that could have then took over it, because that's usually the plan. The succession plan is once the tournament's finished, the local team will then move in. There wasn't one in Manaus. So it was like, what were you thinking with that one? And that's also the one where all the parts for it, they had to bring them up a boat in the Amazon River. They couldn't fly them in because there was no airport. There was no local airport to bring it in. There was not, so they had to bring all the parts for the stadium up the Amazon River. And it's like, wow, what were they thinking with that stuff? But anyway, that's all the political side of it.
Really experienced German would sort that around for them.
Would, by the way. Yeah. Aye. But no, we've hit the halfway point. So Russell, the intro is playing up for me at the start. So do you want to run the music just now?
Yeah.
See if it runs smoothly for you. And when we come back in 2 minutes, we will get into the World Cup 2014.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Let's listen to some Chris Sutton.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.
Let's fade ourselves back in again, just letting the people see the background.
You're loving that photo of that stadium, Billy. You're loving it, mate.
It's iconic, mate. Christ the Redeemer overlooking the Maracana. It's just like, man, what a view. What a view. And as I said before we came on the air, anytime you watched any of the games during this World Cup, if there was a game being held at the Maracana, BBC or ITV got the absolute money's worth out of the drone footage, where every game, the intro would always start with drone footage flying around Christ the Redeemer in the floodlit stadium in the Maracana there in the centre. It was just like, what an image, man. That's the home of football right there. That's what that is, the home of football. It's the Mecca, the place to be, the iconic Maracana Stadium in Rio de Janeiro.
Cool.
But yeah, let's get on to it, guys. Let's get on to World Cup 2014, and let's start with pressing issues. You'll see it's in inverted commas because it's not a genuine issue, but it's more about the pressing game, because for the last 4 or 5 years, it's all been about tiki-taka. It's all been about passing in little triangles. As I've vented my frustration a few times on the show, I wasn't a massive fan of Spain and how they always used to stranglehold teams out of the game. But hey, it worked for them. And I know there's a lot of fans that absolutely love that. And hey, that's their gift too. But I wasn't a big fan. So I was hoping that somebody would come along and find a way to crack this Spanish dominance. Because, yeah, they are going to this tournament, reigning world champions, 2 times European Championship winners in a row, 2008. They won in 2010, 2012. So 3 trophies on a bounce. Could they make it 4? They've already made history by doing 3. But, yeah, they're chasing 4 trophies on the bounce. And they're in a group with Australia, as I mentioned earlier on, Chile and the Netherlands. But of course, I don't know if you can remember this, but a year before this World Cup, they always do the Confederations Cup. It's a forerunner. I sort of like, the host nation for the World Cup will host the Confederations Cup. And it's essentially just a sort of runner just to see how the stadiums function and stuff like that. And Brazil absolutely leathered Spain in the final 3-0. And it was a case of they were very aggressive. They pressed high. They got in Spain's face and wouldn't let them settle. So a year before this tournament kicked off, they kind of gave us a bit of a blueprint, a bit of a clue as to how you upset this Spanish team. And, of course, what we saw in the opening game for Spain, it was a repeat of the 2010 final. They, of course, were playing the Netherlands. And even though Spain take the lead early on in the game for a penalty from Xabi Alonso, just before half-time, the tone is set when Robin van Persie scores an absolutely ludicrous diving header. The sort of way that he bends his body to sort of like head it over the goalkeeper. Casillas is left flat-footed and he just loops over him. Van Persie makes it 1-1 at half-time, and in the second half, Spain completely collapse and Holland go on and beat them 5-1. A astounding result given what Spain had achieved in the last few years. But Russell, what was your initial reaction to that one?
I was bold of the Spain movement, if you like. The tiki-taka thing, I completely subscribe to your view on it, Phil, if I'm honest. I found it monotonous and a bit boring. I really did. I appreciate some of the players, of course I do. But
yeah,
I felt they were just like Pep's fucking football, but just getting copied basically into the Spanish team, and it didn't do anything for me. I didn't feel there was much personality in that team. I felt it was all fucking look how technical we are, look how well we could pass ball. And I know that's what people strive for in football. I like a wee bit of variety in it. I like a wee bit of naughtiness and a bit of attitude, Phil. And I didn't feel that team had much attitude. And funnily enough, once they were up against it, they crumbled straight away, which tells maybe they were showing a wee bit too much respect during that 3-tournament winning streak, which was phenomenal, by the way. But I just wonder if all that was about was their football was better, if you like, and no one really laid a glove on them. And I think once they got laid a glove on, they actually they were quite soft-centered when it came to it. I think they crumbled pretty easily. That was a pumping that Holland gave them, the Netherlands, whatever you prefer to call it. Depends if I'm with Ada Newman talking about the Schotthau, Eredivisie.
But we know what the most astounding thing about this result is, and we'll get on it later. This 5-1 result isn't even the craziest result at this World Cup, but initially, what was your reaction when you saw Spain get that doing? I think it was Van Persie scores 2, Robin scores 2, and I think it's Johnny Heitinger. There's a centre-back, Ron Vlaar or something like that. One of the centre-backs definitely scores, but one of Robin's goals is just a burst of pace for Robin, which you expect. And if I remember, Ramos and Casillas try to basically tackle him, and he just takes the piss out of them and goes around them and puts the ball into the net. And it's just Robin. Like Casillas is like flailing at his feet, trying to get it. And he just dances around them, puts it in the net. They were absolutely taking the piss, weren't they, Liam?
I know what I enjoyed it because it looked like this. All right, this is going to be a good World Cup. That Van Persie diving header, I mean, I was diving. I felt it was 30 yards outside the goal.
It was?
It was a 30-yarder. It's like insane. I thought that was one of the best goals I'd ever seen in a World Cup. And here I am in first games, and you're already seeing amazing football and it's scoring. And the team that frustrated everybody in the last time by the 1-0s and just doing enough to get and no surrender, any position or any goal. The boring football.
Yep.
And I think what happened at that time is you've seen Spain. Spain went full all in Barcelona at that point.
Yeah.
Whereas Real Madrid were
completely agree, mate.
They were captain game, as you can see in how they won the cups and all that. But Barcelona, they stuck to the tiki-tac stuff maybe too long, right? Maybe that's why a bit of a bother now. But that was the start of it. I think you've seen when Spain.
It's the physics of that goal, the Van Persie one. I'm trying. No matter how many times I watch it, like we've talked about Euro 2004, Russell, when Larsson scores that diving head at the back post, he basically throws himself at it, and his body's like as straight as a dart. It's just like there's, but the way Van Persie's body sort of bends, it's like his back kind of arches, and it's so weird. It's like, I can't describe it. It's like a fish flailing around or something, just the way his body just bends, and he heads it up the way and it loops over Iker Casillas' head into the net. And it's just like, how did he even get that connection? How did he think as the ball was coming in to just react like that? But Van Persie, when he wasn't injured, was just a phenomenal player. And another one that's linked to us, I do believe, along the way. You might have mentioned somewhere.
Yes, he was. He was linked with us, Phil. I remember he came on the night Van Hooijdonk scores the 2 free kicks for Feyenoord against Rangers.
Yes.
Van Persie comes on as a substitute, an 18-year-old kid, and he curls one and hits the post.
Okay.
Right, and I was like, I remember even the telly I watched. It was a Sanyo. It's about fucking 16-inch, not if that, like in my room, like a portable TV I'd had for about 10 years by then, right? And I was watching that, and I remember when he's a fucking player, him. I just like the look of him straight away. He just looks so silky, and it was within a month. But don't get me wrong. Again, this could just be that lazy journalism thing that we talk about quite often, where
true
plays well against Rangers, slow news day, let's link him with a move to Celtic. You know what I mean? Joining those dots is pretty simple. And I'm not going to give that much kudos to all the journalistic qualities of the Scottish MSM. Let's be quite clear on that.
Yeah.
You know, obviously they're having to turn to fan media now to get their assets, which, you know, fair play to them. But yes, he was 100% linked with us at that time. Talking about the goal though, when he does the goal, he in midair, he gets the power from his waist. That's how he's heading. So it's not just his neck, but it's his waist. So he kind of goes in like, I'm trying to do the shape on camera, but his body's like this as the ball's coming round. He's at that shape, and then it sort of straightens as he's heading it. He goes straight, but he's garnered that loop. See, to be able to get that loop, he had to sort of use it from, I think it was muscles in here as well as just his neck. And he's got what he was doing was getting himself behind the ball from a ball that's coming from miles behind him. So try and think about that, right? Now, normally you would wait till it gets in front of you, and you would sort of just do it like that and sort of try and clip over the keeper. But instead, he's twisted and arched his body in a way. He's managed to get himself coming in with velocity. Gordon Strachan's favourite word. And that's what he's done. That's how he's managed to do it. But to do that in mid-air, in these sort of occasions, takes a special talent and a really clever goal. Brilliant header. Still not as good as Henrik's.
Not as good as Henrik. It's something about it basically starts to crumble for the Spanish, as you say. Once people started getting in their face and taking the game to them, they didn't know what to do. They were a bit soft through the middle. And let's talk about the other teams in that group, though, because the other two were Chile and Australia. Now, I mentioned before on Bustalgia, Chile's a team that I've always quite enjoyed to watch because they've always been quite an aggressive sort of pressing team. I've always been quite impressed with them when they 1998 World Cup was my first exposure to them when they had the exciting Zamorano and Salas up front. I thought they were really exciting to watch.
We spoke about them before. That's a great example.
They've always been a team that I've always kind of looked out for. One of the sort of minnow teams that I kind of like to see do well, but they're in this group as well with Australia. And in the other game, Chile sort of just dust Australia aside, not too bothered. They won 3-1 in the end. It wasn't too much. I say Chile were the team that, from in my mind going into this tournament were the one to watch. But I say, in hindsight now, years later, with what's happened regarding our manager, a lot of people have talked about Australia's performance at this World Cup. But I remember this Chile-Australia game. Chile didn't seem that fussed, but it's in the next round of games when things get interesting, especially from an Australian point of view, because that is the game when Tim Cahill scores that absolute thunder bastard of a volley. So that's two amazing goals in this group already. But that's the one the cross comes from deep, and he just waits for it to drop out the sky.
Left
peg connects perfectly, and in off the crossbar for bonus points as well. But Tim
Cahill's 35?
Yeah, I guess at this point, he's getting on a bit.
I mean, is he doing the Ange press?
Well, I wouldn't think so. I don't think he's got the legs at that point to do it.
Ange Postecoglou is this one-dimensional. Like everyone tries to pin, he's not an Ange player. Nope, not an Ange player. Ange likes good players. Let's get that fucking clear. I am so sick of this argument where people think they've decided a profile that only Ange likes, and he's like, I'm like, you're almost slagging him off. You don't even realise, because you're trying to be ball deep on Ange, you don't actually realise you're almost slagging the guy off as if he's a bit of a divvy, that he only can play one way, and he's only Tim Cahill doesn't fit anything of Ange ball. Yet at 35, that was his go-to guy at a World Cup. Tells you all you need to know. Tells you all you need to know. And of course, Cahill being the one-off. I think, sort of player he was. I mean, he was a moment in time for Australia for a few years, and for Everton, may I add. But Ange recognised that absolutely and goes, it's almost like, see when sound the klaxon, but when O'Neill took over, Moravcik isn't a Martin O'Neill real type player. He watches him in training twice and goes, holy fuck, I've got to find a way. I've just got to find a way. And that's what good managers do, Phil. That's that simple.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think you look at that sort of example, and yeah, let's put it to bed that Ange can only sign players that run 1,000,000 kilometres a match and run at 100 miles an hour. Tim Cahill at 35 is his go-to guy at a World Cup. So yeah.
Aye.
Now, Bill, do you remember, was there another Celtic connection that played in that Australian team?
The Aussie team.
Azani, was he on that team?
No, he was 2018 World Cup. He came off the bench for Australia and then got loaned out to us that summer and played about 20 minutes of football. Right. He got the Marvin Compere role where he played about 20 minutes for us, and he got injured though. Compere was a different one where he played 20 minutes or whatever it was and was never seen again. But Arzani's one was different. He played at Dens Park. Looked pretty good in those 20 minutes he played. And then he got injured and never played.
So was he in the 2014 World Cup squad?
No, 2018.
He was the 18 World Cup squad. He was the wild card, wasn't he? Well, effectively, do you know what I mean? But I mean, it was a shame because I liked what I'd seen from him, Liam, in the couple of games Ozani played, and the couple of minutes he'd played. But I mean, he looked like he had a wee bit of swagger, that ability. He actually had a bit of Patrick Roberts when he first came on the scene about him.
Yeah,
you know.
I think that's what we were expecting. He was coming in from Man City, tricky winger coming in on loan. So I think that's what we will.
A player coming from Man City to Celtic.
Could be something happening again in the future. Just keep your eyes peeled for that one.
I've never heard anything like that in my life, Phil.
Yeah, that connection might be getting utilised again in the very near future. Let's have a look and see what happens. But here's a question for both of you guys, right? And again, this is with the benefit of hindsight. Because in the last year, 18 months, since Ange has been around, right, a lot of people have talked about this World Cup and this campaign and what Australia did and how they took the game to the teams in their group. Although I would argue the Netherlands game's probably the only one, because I say the Chile game, I felt Chile dealt with them pretty well, and Spain ended up beating them 3-0. Maybe there was an interview I'm sure Jackson Irvine did with open goal, and he really bigged up that campaign and talked about Ange's tactics, which might have accentuated it. And a lot of fans have now got this idea that Australia were outstanding at this World Cup. Because if I was able to go back in a time machine and ask myself, what did I think of Australia at the 2014 World Cup? My answer would be they were all right. Tim Cahill scored a good goal against Netherlands, but yeah, a lot of people in the last 18 months or so have been talking about this amazing football that Australia played at the 2014 World Cup. And I think it's purely down to they gave Netherlands a scare for a wee while because they were 1-2-1, if I remember right, at one point.
Yeah, they were 2-1 up, 100%.
Other than that, and other than the Cahill goal, which was fucking phenomenal, no doubt about it. But they were okay. They were fine.
We live in a world right now where things get dressed up to suit narratives. That's fine.
Yeah.
And people revise history. They revise it. I mean, how can you come out of a World Cup 3 defeats out of 3 in a group where, yes, Spain are the world champions, nightmare. However, we've just exposed they're on the decline. Once they've got a chink in the armour exposed, they were actually pretty soft-centred, we reckon. They were 2-1 up against Holland. And, of course, Chile, for me, if you're playing this rock and roll brand of football that's so amazing, well, they're a team that you should be going for the 3 points off. I think it's all been just a wee bit of revisionism going on. At the end of the day, Australia qualified from the World Cup group this year just as tough, and actually with a far poorer collection of players. This wasn't any sort of golden era of Australian football. It was guys for fucking St Mirren and Harry Souttar and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like Aaron Moy was in the team and looked brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Like they were far more unfancied, I would say, this year than what they were even back in 2014. The fact of the matter is, it wasn't a tournament that anyone should be writing home about and describing as, I think his Asian Cup win is a far more, I'll say the word again, compelling argument to measure his achievements with Australia, because that was the first time he'd done that. Then 3 defeats from 3 in the World Cup. Before you know it, we'll be looking back in 10 years and saying this Champions League campaign was shit hot. I don't think so.
Well, that's possible. Yeah,
I'm not
I think Liam the thing that the sort of acid test with that one is, if Australia played this amazing football, right, that everyone's talking about now, and if you could go back and ask yourself at that point, what was the name of the Australian manager then? If you could put yourself on the spot, most people would be like, I can't remember. But if the football was that amazing by Australia at that World Cup, everyone would just remember it off the top of their head, be like, oh, it was so amazing. But no, I just feel like over the last 18 months, they did fine, but it was a hard group they were in, and there was a moment where they scored a wonder goal against the Dutch, and they were winning at one point, but ultimately, they saw about the points you put on the board, and it was 3 losses out of 3. But I say it would all work out well for Mr. Postecoglou in the end.
Absolutely.
Thank God it did.
I think achieving these qualification to these tournaments as well, though, that shouldn't be getting dressed up into something that's like mercurial work or anything like that. It's not. I mean, that Scotland qualification campaign or any Scotland that is a far trickier and full of far more obstacles to try and qualify from than what is perceived an amazing achievement, Australia qualifying for a World Cup. Honestly, just look at the teams that they're playing against, Fiji's and the like, and it's not. It shouldn't be all that surprising that or dressed up as an amazing achievement that Ange got them to a World Cup. I don't see that.
I think Liam, as you can see, Steve O'Matt's comments, pretty good revised history. They played well out with the World Cup, so that gives credentials. But at that World Cup, they were very much the David taking on Goliath. No fear, attacked, exciting, but only in a fun to watch.
Sounds familiar, that narrative, though, to be honest.
It does.
Sounds familiar. And you know what? Sometimes it will get to a stage where you'll be measured on points and not the brand of football you play. That's kind of how it always was when I was growing up. And I suppose, particularly in an era where we didn't win a lot, that was kind of how you met. Tommy Burns played brilliant football. We didn't win fuck all. It was a miserable period. Now it gets looked on romantically, but maybe first and foremost because of the charisma and the man that Tommy is. I know. So you can obviously look at some of the highlights that Lil Z will put on Twitter, for example, and you go, fucking hell, that was really good football. But at the time, the context is, how many points did we get at the end of the game? 1. That's not good enough. We need 3 points. How many draws have we got? And, I think that the great football narrative will carry so far. But I think inevitably, as all managers are, eventually they'll get judged on the points on the board. And that will happen with regular Champions League appearances. That will occur with Ange as well. That will happen. It will start turning into, if we were to do the same again next year as what we did this season, you will start then going 0 points at a World Cup, failed to qualify from the Europa League, beaten off Bodo Glimt, 2 points from his first Champions League campaign, say 1 win next year. That will then all start getting bundled together and going, well, big tournaments, this ain't working, so why is he doing it? Do you know what I mean? Right now, there is a firm belief in the positivity because it's brave and it's bold, but I do also think that direction of travel in the fans sort of like mind's eye will eventually sort of turn to, well, actually it's not successful, and that then becomes a numbers game, and that becomes about points on the board, and that is inevitable. That will happen, and I don't mean that heaven forbid that happens. I would be delighted if we play the brand of football we are right now and it brings on points. All I'm saying is that will have to happen sooner rather than later before that switch is flicked, because football fans are fickle.
Yes, they are. Yeah, that's a saying we've used many times on the bus, along with getting our balls tickled. That's another saying that we like to use on here. That's football fans are fickle, and the balls tickling one is the other one that always comes up. But yeah, that's something we should put on the next T-shirt. Get your balls tickled. That should be the next slogan.
But what if folk actually think I'm going to tickle their balls? I mean, they didn't want that film. False advertising, mate.
Don't want that. But
I don't know where it came from, the balls tickling and stuff.
Liam, it's got a place now.
And he gagged me. Honestly, I shouldn't be allowed to do any of these daft interviews with him. Honestly, who came up with that bus stop idea for? It was fucking daft.
No, who did? I
Once I run away with myself, I just start talking utter shite.
People love it anyway. It seems to be working, so let's keep on doing that. Okay. But to round off this group, so Spain's disastrous, tournament comes to an end after 2 games are knocked out because Chile step up and beat them 2-0, and so Spain are going home after 2 games. And in the final round of games, Spain do get a final win. They beat Australia 3-0. Meanwhile, Holland would go through a 2-0 against Chile. But both Chile and Holland have qualified. But guys, do you remember what happened in the knockout stages? Because Holland obviously go on and finish third in the tournament. They go to the third place playoff. But along the way, first of all, they beat Mexico in the second round, where they had quite a controversial late winner with Arjen Robben. Wouldn't be like him as well. Took a bit of a dive to win a penalty. Klaas-Jan Huntelaar scored a late penalty, obviously, to win it. But in the quarterfinals, Louis van Gaal, he showed that he had the big cojones. He did a massive call in the last minute of extra time against Costa Rica. I remember this very, very well because one of my mates got married that day and we were at the wedding reception that night. And me, obviously the groom, all the guys basically at the wedding ended up down the stairs in the bar watching this game on the telly. And this is a 0-0 with Costa Rica late in extra time. And Louis van Gaal subbed off the goalkeeper. He brought on Tim Krul. He took off Jesper Cillessen and brought on Tim Krul. And it was obviously a sort of mind games tactic to get into the head of the Costa Rican players that this guy coming on, he's a specialist at saving penalties. And Liam, it fucking worked because they beat them on penalties. But I think that's the first time I've seen that because I've noticed in recent years, I've seen teams, I'm sure this World Cup did someday. I've never seen a goalkeeper against them. Maybe that was just one to get a goalkeeper a bit of game time. But I'm sure this is a tactic that's been wheeled out since then where goalkeepers have came on late in extra time. We've seen outfield players coming on late in extra time with the aim of them taking a penalty, which usually doesn't work well. But this is the first time, Liam, that I can remember a manager doing that by Louis van Gaal with the big cojones there. Just like, I'll sub my goalkeeper off. What are you going to do about it?
I mean, he might be one of the things when they practice penalties, and it was just like when he just thinks, God, see if I could only get you to catch a ball and kick a ball in open play, you'd be brilliant. And so, I think it's partially mind games, but also knowing what's on your head.
On, Liam. You're spot on.
And I think he did psych them out because he's a massive big unit as well, isn't he? Like, he's bigger than
Pro, yeah.
So listen, they drill him out, and it's like any time they unleash Goliath, to fight, or like in Troy where they bring the big guy out, it's going to fight. It's like, oh no. So see,
Liam, if you're going to take a penalty and you realise it's the ex-Falkirk goalkeeper Tim Krul that's there, you shit yourself, mate. He comes with real pedigree. That's the ex-Falkirk goalie Tim Krul. I've heard about him, but no, I genuinely actually think Van Gaal is one of the best football managers we've all sort of lived through. I don't know about all time. I'm not going to get on that, but my first memories of Van Gaal with that Ajax team that won the European Cup, the Champions League in 1985, and that was Van Gaal, and he did that with. I mean, you can't win anything with kids. Alan Hansen. I mean, fucking rewind. I mean, that team, the average age must have been way lower than the Man United team that would have won a Premier League title the following season. Way lower. Seedorf and that were like 19. They were kids. And Van Gaal, I think, has been box office. We'll talk about that because that. I think he's got that charisma about him, that style. And it's a shame they've departed tonight. That was his final game in football.
It is, aye.
That's him totally done, and it's a real pity that he'll probably pop up again. We'll be talking about the World Cup 2030, and it was Van Gaal.
Van Gaal
playoff, aye. But I think we should. I think we should admire bold decisions like that, and I think that wasn't done to cause or to put the attention on himself or any of that nonsense. I think with Van Gaal, he has got complete confidence in his decision-making process, Liam. Right. He's went, as you just touched on, oh no, he's the best penalty saver we've got in the squad. I don't fancy him that much as a goalie, though. Stekelenburg, I think it was in goal, wasn't it?
Cillessen, I think it was.
Jasper Cillessen. All right, fair enough. And he's went, do you know what? 127 minutes on the clock. my gut tells me I should do what I've seen, go with what my knowledge is. And my knowledge from training is Tim Krul is shit hot at saving penalties. Fuck it, I'm putting him on. And see,
you know what? You know what, Russell? This is us new in the age of sports analytics at the same time as well.
Yes.
So that also must have been coming from some of his bench, the guys that do the data crunching, the analytics, that knows two things are going to happen. One, we know Krul's over sufficient in every area of penalty saving than the other goalkeeper. The other thing as well, the Costa Ricans the Chileans, they're going to be looking at their sheets and everything's against the former goalie. Chances are he played in all the games. So all their data, which way the other going to dive.
Yeah.
For him. And so that's going to create, they've not got that. Now there's hesitancy and there's a bit of uncertainty, and the logic now going in. So I think that really bit. And if that's a coach's move, that's absolutely genius. That's how you see how good managers that know that this is a game that's played partially in your head. And
do you feel as well? Van Gaal, probably even by 2014, obviously you look at his Manchester United spell, which shortly followed, and he was ridiculed as a dinosaur and all this bullshit, which is complete ageism, by the way. It's all that is. You just see grey hair and you go, oh, he makes a bad call, it's because he's doolally. As Liam just says there, Van Gaal was probably the forefront of using these sort of analytics you see, front, left, and centre right now in football. So let's cut all that bullshit. And by the way, the Dutch, to have him employed as their manager at 2022 World Cup, 8 years on, and they make the quarterfinals and they go out in the quarterfinals on penalties, tells you that this guy, even now, he had a bit about him. And I think sometimes, particularly the English media, I feel are very, very quick to judge people by, the tint of grey in their hair, as opposed to actually what they can fucking do. Do you know what I mean? I find they do it often, just to go off on a wee tangent, but with footballers, it seems the narrative across Europe seems to be changing. The landscape's changing. You watch the two captains come out tonight: 39-year-old Brazilian captain, 35-year-old Argentinian captain, Ronaldo, 37, Portugal captain, Modric, Croatia captain, 37. Right? These are great. But in England, you hit 30, and the second you have a bad game, it's about, oh, his legs have gone. Legs have gone, guys. Legs have gone. He's just slower to react now because of his age. I think they're doing it right now with Jordan Henderson. I think he's 31, 32, and they're doing a bit of that now that, he's not the force he was. And I think I think it's extremely lazy to bring it back to a Celtic context. I thought that narrative began with Scott Brown under Ronnie Dyler. Do I think Scott Brown was living his best life? Probably not. And Brendan Rodgers got him back into shape. But that doesn't change the fact his poor performances weren't based on the fact he's 32 years old and he's finished. That's so lazy. That's not journalism, in my opinion. That's not observing what's happening in front of you. Someone can have a poor game for a multitude of reasons. Critique him. Slag off what he got wrong. His passing was sloppy. Why then just so lazy, and it's so red top bullshit to go, oh, he's 32, so it must be because of that. I really struggle with that. And I think with Van Gaal, when he was at Man United, just to go back to the point here, he got a bit of that, Liam. Do you know what I mean? Because, he's old, he's not in touch with what's going on. He's in touch with exactly the surroundings he wants to be in touch with. Because he's not He's not fucking cutting a bit like Villas Boas with Football Manager up on a laptop beside him. Fuck off. That's not who he is. That's not his, because he has a glass of wine after he plays football. That doesn't mean he's not in touch with the current player. I mean, this guy has achieved more than most ever will. And I mean more than most really good managers ever will, let alone he's probably competing for trophies with the greats. So I cut him some slack, and to get Holland after the disappointment of the 2010 World Cup, they were runners up, am I right? Aye.
Runners up, they were.
Runners up. To get them then into the semi-finals, where really all he could do was fail at this World Cup on the back of the 2010 one, because the chances of Holland being in two World Cup finals, I think, are slim to none. Yeah. So to get them to the semis, he's been a right good fist of that, is he not?
He's done very well. But when you're talking about the media writing people off just with a slight tinge of silver hair, I wonder what they'd write about me. I'd get written off right away. See the grey hair on my head and go off. He's a dinosaur. Right there.
I have the conversation with myself about you all the time, Phil. I'm
Jose Mourinho followed after Van Gaal. Remember, he was labelled a dinosaur. He's always been a silver fox as well with the grey hair coming through. So must be a thing. Must be in England. As soon as they see the grey hair, they're like, nah, he's too old. Nah, he's finished. That's him. He's done. But Russell, here's a bit of trip.
What you're looking for is you want, when you're watching, whether it be the telly or whether you're reading an article online or, some people maybe still in a newspaper, you're wanting objective fucking analysis that is based on what you've witnessed, what you've watched, not headline grabbing bullshit about age and all this nonsense where it's not, it's just lazy, Phil. It's fucking lazy, and I don't subscribe to that. Liam's never looked better below us.
He's went black screen here. Don't know if he's what he's done there. I can still hear him. Yeah, I can hear him.
Liam, you're pitch black, mate.
There you go.
There it is.
There we go. He's turned his camera around.
There he is. That big man, looking cool as fuck as always. Love it, mate. Sorry, Phil.
No, but see, that was Holland's coming out of that group, what they did. But Russell, the other team that came out of that group, do you remember their fate in this World Cup? Chile, what happened to them?
Chile.
Yeah. Good bit of trivia, this one. This is one of these, you'll appreciate this bit of trivia.
Go on and light me, mate.
They went out in the second round, which doesn't sound that spectacular. They lost to Brazil on a penalty shootout, but they were the width of a crossbar away in the last minute from beating them. But do you remember the player that hit the crossbar? He used to play in the SPL. He used to play in the SPL and didn't play for Celtic or Rangers. He played for a team outside that.
So it must have been
Hearts player.
It was a Hearts player under the Romanov era, one of the many foreigners. Maurizio Pinilla hit the crossbar in the 90th minute. And they were the ones that crossbar if you put in Brazil out, but not. It ended 1 each, went through to penalties, and Brazil beat them. But we'll come back to Brazil's fate later on, obviously. But yeah, Maurizio Pinilla was the one for a crossbar away from knocking Brazil out of their own World Cup. Oof, my God, that's absolutely. But yeah, he used to play with Hearts and the early Romanov era, one of the many foreigners that they brought in at that point. But yeah, he was that close.
Pinilla had been, I believe, Sporting Lisbon. And I think he was very, very well thought of at one point.
Yep.
Very highly rated. I think it was a bit of a coup Hearts getting him. Just one of those folk, the career's meant to be going that way, falls a wee bit off a cliff, and somehow big Romanov just come here and make some money that nobody's got.
But yeah, that's what happened to him. But I think at that point in time, he's playing in Italy. But yeah, he did have Hearts on his CV from a previous season. I think it was 2008 or something like that. Maurizio Pinilla very nearly became a hero in Chile. Nearly knocked Brazil out. But as I say, we'll come back to Brazil's fate later on because you all know what's coming with that one. But let's talk about, we always like to talk about England's fate. And they were in what we would call the upside down group, because the group they were in was England, Italy, Costa Rica, and Uruguay. And you'd think, well, surely England and Italy, maybe Uruguay will sneak through here because they've got a decent track record. But Costa Rica, they're the whipping boys in this group. What chance have they got? But yeah, England, of course, are under the leadership of Roy Hodgson at this stage, because we talked about it in the last one. Liam, he's taken over just before Euro 2012 after the whole Capello resigning. It was all in the fallout of the John Terry debacle with the racism row, get stripped of the captaincy, and Capello didn't believe the FA were right to strip him the captaincy before he's been found guilty in a court of law. And anyway, Hodgson is still in the job here at this point. And they fly out there for they're fancied to go through. You would think England, they'll get out of that group. Italy are in there. That'll be a tough one. Italy are looking to make amends for a pretty dismal 2010 World Cup. They were the champions in 2006. They went out in the groups in 2010, but they got to the final of Euro 2012. So they feel like, right, we're getting back to the level that we should be. But no, this group goes completely wrong for the two European sides in it. Because the dark horse team are Uruguay, who of course are spearheaded by Luis Suarez, who was so close to Premier League glory that season with Liverpool. But yeah, the partnership he's been forming up front with Daniel Sturridge, they've been following obviously with Uruguay. It's him and Edson Cavani that are up front. But of course, the last time we talked about Suarez was obviously the handball at the 2010 World Cup. And then that time since then, he's signed for Liverpool. He's racially abused Patrice Evra, which led to suspension. He bit Branislav Ivanovic, which led to suspension, and was arguably the hottest striker as well in the Premier League all at the same time. So this guy is all over the place. But yeah, he is going to be coming up against some of his Liverpool teammates as well when they play England. So that's a storyline in itself. But amazingly, in the opening round of games, a Christian Gamboa assist is one of the goals for Costa Rica as they beat Uruguay 3-1, which nobody saw coming. Uruguay took the lead in that game through Cavani, and then Costa Rica recovered and beat them 3-1 in the end. And of course, England start with a 2-1 loss to Italy. Balotelli scores the winning goal. But in the second round of games, now it's the Uruguay-England game, and England have got to get themselves a win. Wayne Rooney at this point, everything's just relying on him. Even though he's getting on quite a bit now, he's into his 30s, I would believe, at this point, Russell. I would think, or either very, very late 20s, Rooney. Wayne Rooney?
No, he is 29. Born in 85.
Yeah, because Rooney does score England's goal in this one, but of course Suarez...
Stop shaking your head, Liam.
It's just freakish how he knows it. But Suarez, of course, scores the brace in this one. The winning goal, hilariously, and this isn't the first time that Steven Gerrard's been at fault for a goal England's lost in a tournament. A ball comes over the top and he nods it on into the path of Luis Suarez. The irony, because that's his teammate at Liverpool. He nods it perfectly right into Suarez's path, doesn't need to break his stride. He's through on goal and smashes it in the net with about 4 minutes left on the clock. And Uruguay beat England 2-1, and England are going home after just 2 games. But of course, in the final group game, Suarez, the Panto villain, you just can't even believe this happens because they're playing Italy, and it's a Italy must win because they have also lost to Costa Rica as well. Costa Rica beat Italy 1-0, so it's win or bust for the Italians. Mental. The thing is, from a Scotland point of view, that's good because up to that point, Costa Rica's most famous World Cup achievement was beating Scotland in the 1990 World Cup. So now they've got that on their CV. So now they can no longer say their win over Scotland was their biggest moment at a World Cup. But yeah, in the game against Italy, between Italy and Uruguay, it's 0-0 in the second half. And there's an altercation between Chiellini and Luis Suarez. And incredibly, you can't believe it when you watch the replay. It's like a surreal moment. Like, I cannot literally believe this has just happened. After what has happened in the last 4 years with this guy, he sinks his massive teeth right into Giorgio Chiellini's shoulder to the point where Chiellini pulls his shirt back and shows the referee. It's like, look. But Suarez amazingly escapes punishment. But I could believe it and couldn't believe it at the same time. Russell, it was one of these, well, he's got a track record for it, but I still can't believe he's got the gumption to actually do it again.
The guy's a fucking disgrace. It's that simple. I don't mind. I was boasting, so I need to be consistent. I was boasting about, your Van Dijk, Juranovic, I've got him in the brain. Van Dijk running in and not using his arms, but still body checking someone and sending them 5 yards. But I think to go in with your teeth to another person.
Oh, you muted yourself, Russell. He's managed to mute himself by moving his microphone, I think.
I think.
Still muted. Try disconnecting, Russell, and come back in. You could try that. If all else fails, they'll turn it off and turn it back on again. Universal fix, as you do. You could try that. But Liam, I'll get your opinion now then while Russell logs off, because you mentioned this, we talked about Suarez before. Some people just have a knack of falling up the way, because obviously he bites Chiellini. This is the third time he's done it in 4 years, because he bit a PSV player, he bit Branislav Ivanovic, and now he's bit Chiellini at the World Cup, so the whole world is watching this. He then somehow off the back of this, even though he doesn't get punished on the park, he doesn't get a red card or anything, he finishes the game, but he does cop a 9-game suspension from FIFA and will miss the rest of Uruguay's World Cup. But off the back of this, he also gets a move to Barcelona. Obviously, Liverpool realised, right, he's too much trouble now, we need to get rid of him. But he ends up at the best team in Europe, and they win the Champions League in 2015. He becomes part of one of the best forward lines in modern football with Neymar and Messi. And again, it's that thing you said, Liam. Some people just fall up the way. How it happens, I don't know.
That was exactly it. If you look at somebody that's done everything horrible you can do in football, he's racially abused a fellow player, he's betting 3 people on the park. The things we've caught him doing. Well, you know, he dives, he cries, he whines. Everything about him is just completely deplorable. There's nothing good, remarkable about him. And he goes, at that time, probably the biggest team on the planet that was buying all the superstars. And he's now catapulted superstardom with Neymar and Messi.
Yeah.
Just very quick, like, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yeah.
I was going to have fun, and like, if you asked me the next question, I was going to kid on it. Like, I was going to kid on it. I was like, but anyway, this is my take on it. I want yours, Liam. I think when Barcelona signed him, their direction of travel completely changed, and that is when Barcelona, all the soul and all the goodwill they had, that is when their whole policy of type of player they had moved, switched. I don't think they fully recovered from that. I know they won the Champions League and all that, and that's probably at the end of the day what they're all about. But that's when Barcelona started signing players I didn't associate with Barcelona, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. I can see that as well too. It's like, you know, as if we started signing players that were like known divers or, you know, and just stuff like that. The things that just the people, I don't know, I can't even mention their name right now or think anybody. I mean, Gary Miller's bad enough, right? But you know, if we signed somebody that was just like a right Tory out there, you know what I mean? Like really vocal about it, that would be so against us, right? And I saw that as well. Yeah, that's when the soul of Barcelona was getting ripped out, and it just became a market at that point. They were part of the Nike deal, and also as well, that was when we're starting to see the financial realities come up as well too.
Yes.
Guys are buying a team to put on the park, and it put the rest of the perspective, especially in that World Cup as well too, where, you know, here's what happens when you can buy a team. Well, here's what happens when you have a team that's put together. You know, like, well, we just off for the one country and you all play maybe the one league in that, and I think the team that winning this, spoiler alert, had a lot of that resemblance, you know. They weren't playing all over the world. Most of them were playing in Germany at the time, and they held on to their identity. I think that's
a great point. That's a fucking great point. That's a great point, Liam.
It's you don't associate Barca with that dirty sign. It was a
They moved the goalposts, Phil.
Yeah,
they completely they moved their goalposts, sold their soul, if you like, brought in a rogue, yes, instant success and all that. But once that becomes sort of your identifying of players, once it begins to change like that, and it moves away from what you were all about, then actually it's setting a more of a rot at Barcelona as opposed to a springboard for a new type of Barcelona, new Labour, new danger and all that. It wasn't new Barcelona, new danger. No. It was, we're now willing to sign guys that don't fit the ethos. You know, and I think, see, when they'd sign Zlatan, who is, I mean, Zlatan is 10 times the professional that Luis Suarez is. They found him too hard because he was driving a Bentley instead of the same club car the rest of them did. Yeah, that's right. So all of them had to drive the same car. He went, fuck that, you pay me $100,000 a week, I'll drive my Bentley into training. And that was seen as problematic in 2010, 2011. So how can it 2010? So how can it change so far that suddenly guys that have bitten players, as Liam says, 2-3 times now in the public eye, how can that then be a go-to? How could that be someone who, on a day-to-day basis, what we don't know about, let's be honest, he wouldn't have been on his best behaviour for 4 years there, mate. He's a cunt, right? He's a wanker, whatever you want to call him, right? Sorry, I used the C word. But he would have been causing you far more headaches and you're doing your brand far more potential damage than a Zlatan would. So that tells you in the space of 4 years, they had their travel, their direction of travel had completely altered and changed. And I think they sacrificed some of the things that Barcelona were revered for and loved for. I think they did that for quick hits, quick hits, quick wins. And in the long run, I think they've came a cropper out of that. because he was probably overpaid over it, and that then becomes your narrative, and you start signing arseholes for far too much money.
Aye, look at Barcelona now, how crippled they are financially, though somehow they're still allowed to sign players for astronomical fees. I don't know how it's
how's
working,
that?
but
I mean, how is that? How is that though? Like,
it's so stupid how it's all worked out for them. But yeah, Luis Suarez would have a pretty good run at Barcelona. Didn't bite anybody, mind you. Seemed to be on some nice behaviour for a change, but they did let him go in 2020 at the age of 34, and he went on and won the league with Atletico Madrid and was the top scorer in La Liga that season at the ripe old age of 34. So, but yeah, at that point in 2014, he was like public enemy number one. Liverpool decided this guy's too much trouble for us now. We need to get rid, and off he went. He fell up the way, as Liam says, to Barcelona, and all worked out for him in the end. But in the immediate aftermath of that game, he doesn't get sent off, even though Chiellini literally points to his shoulder, shows the referee the bite mark. No, he still stays on the park. Diego Godin scores a late winner to send Uruguay through. Italy and England are out. Yeah, sensational. Costa Rica topped the group after a 0-0 draw. England. Costa Rica win the group. Uruguay are seconds. I say the upside down group. It was a real surprise, that one. Italy and England are going home. But as for Uruguay, they're
insane.
I know. How Costa Rica, they didn't lose a game in the group stage. Then they beat Greece in the round of 16, and then they lost to Holland in that penalty shootout we talked about with the Tim Krul moment where he comes on. So they had a pretty solid. They didn't lose a game within the regulation time. They only lost in penalties to go out the tournament. So not too bad. Of course, Christian Gamboa was playing, and he did end up signing for us a few years later.
Yeah.
But as for Uruguay, their fate was sealed in the second round. They came up against the red hot team of Colombia.
I take it Gamboa was in UK football based on this World Cup? Was this a player that West Brom signed probably on the back of impressive World Cup displays? Which is obviously, to very quickly delve into matters present. You were looking at, likes of Tunisian midfield have been looked at right now because of three good displays, and obviously the South Korea striker. And it just goes to show you, still, whilst the Champions League might be the pinnacle in terms of ability-wise, it's very much a closed shop as well. Whereas the World Cup springs up far more surprises and wee Brucey bonuses in terms of players that you would never have heard of in a million years, and might be in that bracket where clubs like ours can sort of delve into it and approach, or clubs like West Brom in the case of Gamboa. That's what I'm getting at. I mean, how does he end up? How does his career path go? To West Bromwich Albion? I would guess it would need to be highlighted in a tournament of real profile, i.e. this World Cup, and 2 years later goes to Celtic. I'm guessing that's what's happened.
Yeah, it sounds about right. I think Monty said in the chat in reply to that yes, he did go off to West Brom off the back of that, but it would end up with us a few years later. But when I say Uruguay, they came up against the red hot team of Colombia, who were definitely, I'd say, the fan favourite at this World Cup because they were very colourful with their coordinated dances. I don't know if Roy Keane would approve of the coordinated dances for the goal celebrations, but they were phenomenal. And of course, one James Rodriguez, who up until that point, everyone thought his name was James Rodriguez, a very anglified name. But it was Jonathan Pierce, the BBC commentator, began calling him James Rodriguez. And people were generally like, is he just putting that on just to be a bit like Derek Ray, just try and pronounce it a different way? But no, it turns out that is how it's pronounced, James. It's not James Rodriguez, but he was at Monaco at this point, I believe. And he ended up winning the Golden Boot. And he's a midfielder. He's not even a forward, but he scores arguably one of the best goals of the tournament in that second round game. They beat Uruguay 2-0. Ball falls from the edge of the area, chests it down and volleys it in, pings off the crossbar as well on the way in. But Colombia send Uruguay packing. But Colombia were, I say, at one point along the way, the football they were playing, you're like, by the way, if there's ever going to be like an upset winner of the World Cup, like a pure unexpected one, you began to think this team, by the way, Colombia could be the ones because they were phenomenal to watch. James Forrest. There we go.
Monty, that's the best comment of the night, mate. James Forrest.
They were some value, that Colombian team, but yeah, they of course lost to Brazil in the quarterfinals. The famous James tears at the end, and David Luiz has got the arm around him and like pointing to him, going, "Oh, this guy." And it's kind of it's easy to do that once you've won the game, David Luiz, But Liam, that Colombia team, they were exciting to watch in that tournament. And again, very colourful with the fans. See, all the goal celebrations were all this. Every single player and substitute involved in some sort of like coordinated dance. It was phenomenal to watch, wasn't it?
Oh, they came out to entertain. I mean, all the women in the crowd were all supermodels as well. You know,
that helps.
But like they came to entertain. I think that's what they did. I liked them in Chile during that World Cup as well. I liked the Brazil game. I thought they really took it to each other, you know. It was like proper hammer and tongs, blood and snotters type stuff. And then Colombia, I know they just had a bit more of a finesse to them. I think, and everybody was just wanting to see Uruguay get beat, you know, because of Suarez at that point. They were the bad point. And so it was great to see Colombia going in. I used to know a bunch of Colombians in Toronto, so it was always fun.
They were a fun team to watch that tournament, but we will obviously get on to one of the things I've been alluding to all night, guys, because we need to now talk about from the sublime to the surreal, because this World Cup is obviously lots of different headlines. After the 2010 World Cup and it being a bit a drag to watch, a lot of teams playing 4-2-3-1 in that World Cup, trying not to lose games rather than win them. This World Cup felt like a real palate cleanser. We've been in Brazil, maybe it was just like Brazil notorious for the attacking football. Everyone was just going for it hell for leather in most games. But so we've had all sorts of mad headlines. I see you've had Colombia's colourful antics, their goal celebrations, the rise of James Rodriguez, the panto villain antics of Suarez. You've seen Spain fall from grace, Italy, Portugal, England all flopping and going out of the group stages. There's a lot of headlines. Or the ever-present in the World Cup, Guillermo Ochoa regenerating for another amazing display at a World Cup. He was phenomenal at the 2014 World Cup as well. But all those headlines would pale in comparison to what happened in the semi-final that was played in, as I say, my favourite city. It was in Belo Horizonte. And it was between Brazil and Germany, two of our football's heavyweights.
We've all been, a bit Belo Horizonte after a few sherbets, Phil. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we have been that. We have indeed.
I certainly have anyway. Do you know what I mean?
But it came down to the Germans and the Brazilians in this semi-final. So the host nation and the most successful team in World Cup history against the second most successful team in World Cup history. Two massive heavyweights clashing. So up to now, Brazil, they've got through the group stages relatively fuss-free, other than the Great Wall of Ochoa holding them at a 0-0 draw with Mexico in the group. They drew 0-0. But, they've got through every other game. They've squeaked past Chile on penalties. They beat Colombia in the quarterfinals, although a crucial moment happened in that game. And I think it plays a part mentally in this one, Russell, where I believe the Colombian defender, might be Yepes, knees Neymar right in the lower back in a tackle. And Neymar ends up with a back injury and he's out for the rest of the tournament. And of course, he is the poster boy of Brazilian football. As for the Germans, they've done what they do best. It's been, classically efficient from the Germans. They smashed Portugal 4-0 in their first game, which was basically triggered by Pepe having a Pepe moment, a meltdown, gets himself sent off, and then Portugal fell to pieces. They drew with Ghana, they beat the USA. Second round, they had a mental game against Algeria where Manuel Neuer had everyone's heart in their mouth by playing the sweeper keeper role, which was kind of coming into football at that point. Manuel Neuer was like one of the pioneers of it, where he's coming 30 yards out of goal. Yeah. It was like, what's he doing? Absolute lunatic. But they got by Algeria. And do
you not think, though, see with Neuer, right? There was a big, big difference with what Neuer does as to what the players do now. Neuer, yes, was a sweeper keeper, but I never felt he tried to overcomplicate the role, if that makes sense. I don't think he ever thought he was a baller, Phil. Yeah. I think a lot of them have dreams now of being the next fucking Franco Baresi and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, they really think they are impacting the team. Whereas I think Neuer was going into areas of the pitch you're not used to seeing a goalkeeper, but keeping it very, very fucking simple.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing the spraying passes and all that. He was just dominating a larger area of his domain than you were used to seeing goalkeepers do. I wonder if that encouraged the madness I think you see now. And I will describe it as madness. See, when I watch teams, no offense, Liam, like to Canada and that, doing that 6-yard pass. Celtic, let's be honest, that 6-yard pass from the goalkeeper from a bad kick to a defender. And then what does the defender do? Because they're getting closed down? Passes it back to the goalie. So now the goalie's got to pick a wonder pass.
Yep.
All he had to do initially was fucking hoof it. Right? Folk think that loses your possession. I watch how often these teams lose possession in the next phase. Maybe not from when the goalkeeper's initially done this daft 4-yard pass, right? But they lose possession all the time doing it. It's not brave. It ain't smart. It ain't clever. It is fashion. That's what it is. It's a fad. And I don't subscribe to that fad. I think Neuer, and he's probably guilty of it a wee bit now because the way football's trajectory has went. However, I think when we look back at this World Cup, the sweeper keeper terminology that was getting used to describe Neuer, I think he was very much, I just dominate a larger part of the pitch than what you're used to seeing normal goalies do. What I then do with the ball at my feet is absolutely what a goalkeeper should be doing. And it's basics, basics, basics.
Yeah, saying this one, he's coming out and say tackling the Algerian forwards like 30 yards ago. But again, Germany's defence are getting caught out because they're so high up and they're getting behind. So he's got no choice. He can either stay on his line and give the guy plenty of time, or he can just come running out. And an attacker might not even expect that and just be like, "What the fuck did I do?" You've got the goalkeeper coming bearing out at you. Don't have time to think, and he was coming to just slide.
What about this angle as well? Mad. I also think he was acutely aware of his profile. His persona, and I think he was actually quite intimidating. I think you knew Manuel Neuer's coming out to get me as opposed to just being the goalies at his line. I think he carried that bit of, and I think that's still so important, Liam, in football. The personality, the character of the guy. I still think when Messi, for example, if he does a wee bit of closing down, or Ronaldo does, you know, it's different than it being fucking. Do you know what I mean? Kevin Karani. Oh, I don't know why I'm saying his name. You know, that's Stuttgart striker. But, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, Paul Dickov, it could be. You know, he did a lot of pressing. He was like a wasp, just a pest. But it wasn't, no one bothered if he was running up to get, because he's hopeless. But I think sometimes you get reputation and profile, likes of Emmanuel Neuer. I think when he's coming at the goal and to make one of those sliding tackles or to head it, I think the striker gets, you know, the average striker, not the greats, but I think it's Manuel Neuer. I think that's in your psyche as well. That psychology is still so important in football. Folks just don't want to talk about it because they think it simplifies it too much.
I remember playing with a goalkeeper like that, where he used to do that to training. Where if it was a 50-50 ball inside the 18-yard box, you had to watch where he was because he thought he was just going to come right through you. And he could do it with such power. And I think when you're playing against a keeper like Neuer, or even like a big Boric or something like that, you know, these players aren't frightened to get on the ground, aren't frightened to use their body to sort of snatch that ball away from you. I think it does make you second guess. As a forward, I think you've got one eye open to see where they're going to be, because last thing you're expecting is a real heavy physical encounter for a goalie. You know, some of these people like Boric and stuff, that's Fraser Forster. I mean, I think that's what makes them all good goalkeepers. Joe Hart. I think Joe Hart's quite a big body coming at you. And there's no fear in Joe Hart when he's coming out. He's no like coming in timid. You see that one where he was getting stitched up on the sidelines?
I thought it was class.
Put himself in harm's way. And I think that's what we started seeing with Neuer as well, that he was a throwback to that type of goalie. They'll do that.
Because he was doing things.
Modernise his game at the same time, right?
That's it.
You know?
The hybrid. You've just nailed it, Liam. You've just nailed it, because he's brought all the traits that I think football's trying to get rid of, which is characters, you know, personality, swagger, attitude, having a big say in events. But also he's doing this brand new style of goalkeeping. But I also think Neuer must tut at times and go, no, it wasn't meant, you know, when I was doing that, it wasn't meant for you to start thinking you can spray balls with the outside of your left foot. Do you know what I mean, pal? Fucking sit down. Do you know what I mean? Get back in your box. You're out there to cover situations to give the forwards a different scenario of problems to, as I say, dominate a greater area of the park than a stereotypical goalkeeper would have. But the ball players are the other 10. So give them the fucking ball as soon as possible, as early as possible, and as straightforwardly as possible. That is where the waters get muddied now, Phil, with goalkeepers. They now think they're going to do that. Not defence splitting, but striker midfield splitting pass and get it into their number 10 direct by, or you know, rather than look at the fullbacks that are near them, look at the winger and, I could streak it. Don't bother your arse, mate. There is a reason you're a goalkeeper. There's a reason you took up goalkeeping in the first place. Don't show me a good footballer who decided they were going to be a goalkeeper. They don't exist.
Yeah, we've got Pep to thank for all this, whereas the goalkeeper, comes out and starts the move, and every manager wants to play that way. I'm very old school. I just want the goalkeeper to keep the ball out of the net. That's all I want the goalie to do.
Phil, look at Pep's record with goalkeepers. This is the guy who thought Claudio Bravo was worth £17 million at 33 years old.
Yep.
Costa Rican as well, by the way.
So he was. Actually, he was Costa Rica's goalkeeper.
Their captain at the World Cup. We're discussing.
Victor Valdez was always one of the massive weak links in that Pep team.
Absolutely shite.
Tony Watt scored past him.
I mean, he was not. He went to Man United and was completely frowned out.
Oh, he was. That's right.
He was awful, mate. Everyone thought he might take De Gea's place. He went, he's not getting. No, he's awful. Yeah. And he wasn't a goalkeeper. I know many people went to Man United in the last decade and perhaps not succeeded. Particularly, many players have. But in the case of Victor Valdez, you took him out the tiki-taka stuff, and he was really valued because of what he could do with the ball with his left and his right peg at his feet, not for saving balls at the net, shots that are coming in towards his goal. And for me, I think as well, when we reflect this, and as we always do in Bustalgia, from a Celtic perspective, I think we really still need to have an onus on guys that are good at keeping the ball at the net.
Yes,
because whether we like it or not, we will never dine at the top table with the same ammunition these other clubs do. So we're going to be on the receiving end of a hill of a low pings of the ball at our goals. And it's very important we've got someone in there who, first and foremost, knows their role is to get their big sweaty palms behind it and keep it out the net. And I think Foster encapsulated that, I really do. I think he got it for that point of view. And Joe Hart, to an extent, I think he's okay. I think he can be improved on big time. He doesn't save enough for me. I think his presence in the team is good, but I think he can be improved on. But if we do go, and we inevitably will go down that road in the near future, whether it be January or the summer, but whoever the replacement for Joe Hart, I would always advocate he'll have a grasp now of how modern teams want to play because it is 2022 and he's living in it, right? Yeah. So let's focus on what he can do in terms of shot stopping. And then the other stuff, he will be trained in that now, no matter what club he's at, right? Because that's now the go-to thing. So they'll be well-versed in that stuff anyway. But just to go back to Neuer, I think he was doing something that we hadn't seen before, but doing it very simply in comparison to what we see now done by the masses.
Yeah, definitely. It's the sort of early stages of it. But he was a master of it. I see that coming out and just a bit like Peter Schmeichel. He was able to make his body really big and that's intimidating. The striker doesn't know where to shoot because he's just really good at doing that. Just getting the arms and the legs out. But Neuer, phenomenal goalkeeper. He has a mad game against Algeria where he's just coming out, closing down the Algerian strikers, stopping them from getting through. Germany end up winning the game 2-1. Quarterfinals, they dust France aside with a 1-0 victory, and that sets up this semi-final, a highly charged and emotional semi-final. Now, Russell, you remember we did the 2006 World Cup show, and we talked about the final where Zidane scores the Panenka. Now, my initial reaction was I was quite impressed by that, but you changed my perspective on it with your one where you said that kind of showed that his head was away. Now, I've looked at this instant, this game, at the very start. Remember I mentioned a few minutes ago that Neymar gets injured against Colombia? Yes. Do you remember during the national anthems, Julio Cesar and David Luiz stood there belting out the Brazilian anthem with a Neymar 10 shot in their hand? And to quote the Ricky Gervais office meme, he's not dead. It was like that. We were like, you would have thought it was like a period of national mourning because Neymar was injured. They stood there, they're belting out the anthem. They've got Neymar shot in their hand. And that's what I'm thinking. The Germans will be looking at that and be like, their heads are gone. And Germany certainly fucking took advantage of that because 5-0 by half time.
They decapitated them, big boy. They decapitated them, let's be clear.
No, after you said that about the Zidane thing, when I looked back on this, I went, that is probably a telltale sign there that their head's gone. They're so tuned out of this game. They're too busy thinking about Neymar, who's not playing.
Phil, let's flip it again. I mean, it happened to France, but France did the same thing in '98. They seen the dodginess with their team lineup with Ronaldo. He's not in it, then he is in it, and before you know it, they're licking their lips, going, "They've lost it. They're away. They're in, you know, they're in doo-doo land. Do you know what I mean? It's not doo-dahan, doo-doo land. You know, they're away with the birds, and they're not focused on the next 90 minutes of football." And if you're holding Neymar t-shirts and silly things like that for a guy at this point in time, 8 years ago, who'd achieved very little in football, to be considered to be worthy of mourning because he can't play in a fixture, this is fucking nonsense. When you see veterans like Julio Cesar holding that shirt, I think the Germans are savvy. I think they look at that and they go,
yeah,
they're fucked. They're in big trouble here. And if you were putting your hopes on Neymar anyway, we'd have had him and all. I think that's how the attitude sort of works. And if you think it's, we need to hold tributes to this guy who's not even playing for you, you clearly don't rate yourself.
Yep.
You don't back
that's a
yourself.
massive sign.
And the Germans have an incredible self-assurance and self-belief, no matter what squad. I'm not saying that generically in a stereotypical way. I'm talking on it based on a number of tournaments I've watched, even when it's not been a particularly great German side. They seem to have a real assurance about them, that self-confidence, a self-belief that is instilled, and not ever will you see them holding old Balak t-shirt because he's fucking suspended or something. I don't think they do that. They're on to the next one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what then occurs is a massacre.
It is an
do that
massacre.
in Brazil against the team you associate with the World Cup, which will always be Brazil. We were talking about Europa League, you associate now with Sevilla. You're talking about the European Cup, you associate with Real Madrid. Well, Liam, I associate the World Cup with Brazil.
No, Liam.
Liam.
No, you know.
Liam, I associate the World Cup with Brazil. Do you know what I mean?
I can see that as well. It's always, you know, living abroad, it's always everybody's default team as well. Your team, everybody, or if you're a neutral, they're always on the Brazil bandwagon and that. But also, I mean, this, I agree with you. As soon as they held up that shirt, it was done. But by the way, he got a pretty significant injury at one point. Like, there was all sorts of talk that he'd never play football again, shit like that, because he took a knee to the lower back, and it was a right, let's just say it was an agricultural tackle that Bobby Matt even gave a card to, you know.
That bad. That tells you how bad it is.
But yeah, I mean, Chile bruised them all out that game. And so by the time they came up against Germany, you're right. I think also the expectations of the crowd got to them. Playing big teams in Europe. But my God, the entire eyes of the world was on Brazil at that point. I think the bottle crashed a wee bit. And I think Neymar's a good excuse, but it might have crashed as well, as you said as well, with him in the lineup. You know?
Fuck, let's be clear here. I think Brazil were not a good team at this World Cup. I think they've muddled their way to the semi-final through the backing of fanatical support, you know, their reputation, the aura they bring, you know, the fear factor they put in other teams, as opposed to actually genuinely as a man-for-man squad or 11. I don't think that's the Brazil we associate, you know, our memories with. Interestingly, though, I was telling you off camera, so I had the boozer at this time, Liam, right? And it was an amazing period, this, because I was kind of grown up now. I was more do you know what I mean? Although, albeit my favourite years were the early years, right? But by this point, I'm savvy, right, with the business, but I'm still kind of trying to play ball with people. So the World Cup, anyone that walked by, I was doing barbecues on the street outside, just disposable barbecues on a stool. Everyone's free. Come in, grab a beer, take your pet, have as much as you want. And I'd run a few barbecues, get the food all collated, we put it in like a big hot tray, it would be there, and the smell wafting across, you know. I didn't have a food license or anything, do you know what I mean? So I couldn't charge for the food, and I wouldn't anyway, right? But at this point, it was coming alive. I remember I was saying to you about the 2010 World Cup, we just started. By 2014, this pub's now is busy, right? It's a busy shop, and it's well in cycle now. And folk just going, that's when I'm going to watch the football. I also got, for the World Cup, a 65-inch TV from the Bandit company, the company that provided the Bandits, the pool tables. Do you just do tellies on tick? It's like, yeah. I was like, this is brilliant. So I say on tick, that was just part of, so when the Bandit money and the jukebox money and all that got collected, you go, right, there's the rent for those machines, and there's the £12 for the telly. That was part of it. But it's a brand new jet, and see, 65-inch telly in a small pub. It was a powerful optic. I've not said that word tonight. And it looked good. It looked like, you know, the Bhoycie Bus, if it were called that then. It's ready for the World Cup 2014. So anyway, I digress. We get to the semi-final, pubs mobbed, Germany go 2-0 up, and we start looking at this game going, this is getting silly already, because they aren't even out of first gear yet. I think, did you see it went to 5-0 at halftime, Phil?
5-0 at halftime.
So I don't know if Paul Mellor's watching tonight. He commented last night in the TNF, but he was sitting with me, and I don't know what the score is. I think it was 2 or 3-0, Liam, right? And me being gallus and playing to the gallery, I suppose, I've decided the final score will be 7-1 Germany. And I will put my money where my mouth is. Stick a 20 quid bet on it. I don't know. It was between 250 to 300 quid I got back. So I'm guessing it must have been 3-0. It must have been 3-0 by now. And the thing is, the Brazilians' goal comes in stoppage time.
It does, aye.
So I'm jumping about. People's like, fuck, I told you he'd lost the plot. I'm jumping about in the midst of serving customers when the Germans get a goal in stoppage time to make it from 7-0 to 7-1.
7-1.
But deep down, I have won. And my mate Mella, I remember looking at him going, you are a dick. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, only you would pick Brazil to score a goal in this game. They were never scoring. So, that's a good memory from that, though. Brilliant times. And I think it was a result when you look back at that one. If they ever do documentaries about previous World Cups and stuff here, I think that's one that they'll go, when they do a wee segment on results that shook the world. That'll be top 2 or 3. Big time, because it's in Brazil.
Well, imagine how we felt losing the 10, right? When we lost the 10, we had a horrible feeling. Like being in Brazil at that point, where everything, entire world is like focused on you. You're winning it. Everybody's talking about a Brazil final, and then just crashing out in that spectacular way. Also, as well, that was Nike against Adidas. You know, the eyes were on the two big.
It was, yeah.
Well, and that was Adidas like striking a corner, saying, "Bring them on."
because Nike in Brazil, that Brazil's Nike's sort of poster boys, eh?
They are.
And obviously, Adidas is German, so they always have the smartest. They always notice they never wear a template kit. The Germans.
That's right. They've always got a special one. Yeah, even the one this year was not like any of the other Adidas kits.
Always got a template kit. You see other template kits, whether it be the away kit or not. Fair enough. But you see similarities in them, and you go, Adidas have kind of went, there's a formula. They can get it. They can get it. They can get it. Different colors. The Germans always have their unique style. So that is a fucking great point. I never thought of that. It is Adidas poster boys against Nike's poster boys on Nike's and Brazil's turf.
Right. And then it became an Adidas final. Well,
so was Argentina, who of course are Brazil's big enemies as well. So that's another storyline going to the final. But yeah, I remember the scenes of like fans crying in the stadiums and going up to close-ups of fans and they're in tears. Because yeah, football is a religion in Brazil. It properly is, and it's like all the pressure that was on that team, but yeah, they just got absolutely ragdolled again. The Germans were just ruthless. They're notoriously ruthless anyway, but you're giving them all the red flags before the kickoff with the waving the Neymar shirt and stuff. It's like, we're going to have you here. And just to add insult to injury, this is a game when Miroslav Klose scores his 16th World Cup goal to bypass R9 Ronaldo's 15-goal record. He does it in this game against Brazil in a 7-1 victory. And there's a weird period between the 24th minute and the 30th minute where Germany score 3 goals. And I've said this before, there's a goal that Khedira scores and Toni Kroos scores. And I swear to God, watching it live, I thought it was a replay was happening in front of me because they were a minute apart. And it was like, pass, and shoot into the bottom right-hand corner of the goalkeeper. And I was like, is that a replay of the goal a minute ago? No, because then it was Sami Khedira was scoring that one, but it was Toni Kroos that scored before. And I was like, holy fuck, it was like 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 at half-time. They come out in the second half. Andre Schürrle didn't get the memo. He goes and scores another 2 goals to make it 7-0 before Oscar gets a goal in stoppage to make it 7-1. And yeah, Brazil absolutely humbled.
Oscar definitely got my memo. Oscar got
my memo. Got your memo. They get much better for Brazil. They go into the third place playoff, the game that nobody wants to play in the World Cup, unless you're a minnow nation that's overexceeded. Aye, if you're not a minnow nation, it's overexceeded in the World Cup. But see, when you're Brazil, you don't want to be in the third place playoff, and they get ragdolled in that as well. Holland beat them 3-0, so it was a good finish to them.
Right.
And that was the end of Big Phil Scolari as well at Brazil. But obviously, as William said, it's an all Adidas final. It's going to be Germany against Argentina, which is actually the most played World Cup final. This would be the third time that Germany and Argentina would meet in the final, albeit they were West Germany the previous 2 times. But, you know, pretty much the same, really. And, it's not an amazing final. But obviously, the big stories going into this is Germany are looking to get their 4th, become the most successful European side. I don't know, are Italy on 4 at that point? I think Italy might be on 3 or 4. I can't even top of my head. But Germany will win that. Obviously, they'll be the first European team to win the trophy on South American soil.
Yes.
Also, Messi, Argentina, big rivals of Brazil, could potentially win the World Cup on Brazilian soil. So there's a lot on the line for both teams. Obviously, the neutrals. I mean, I don't know what the Brazilians would have been doing. What do they've just been humiliated by Germany, or they can have Argentina, their big rivals, win the World Cup on their soil. I'd imagine Brazilians are pretty conflicted watching that final. But overall, it wasn't a great one. It's remembered for a couple of small things, like Higuain scores a goal in the first half. He's a mile offside when he scores it. But he runs off celebrating for about 20 seconds before eventually realising the flag was up. But yeah, Argentina, Messi couldn't really get going. He'd had a decent World Cup as well up to that point, but couldn't really get going in the final. So Higuain scores a goal that's offside. Germany, they hit the post at a corner kick. That was all that really happened in 90 minutes. But in extra time, Mario Götze, a sublime finish. The way he finishes it from the angle that he's at. The cross comes in from the left-hand side, chests it down, and he volleys it across the goalkeeper into the far corner with about 4 or 5 minutes left on the clock. And that ended up being the deciding goal that would win the trophy for Germany, guys.
That's, Mario Götze. I mean, you look at a player like him and you think, right, now we're looking at a player who's going to go on to, I think he'd been phenomenal for Dortmund, got his move to Bayern.
He did, yes.
And you thought, this is the moment in time for a player. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Absolutely stop-start since then. I mean, is he retired?
He is back in Germany playing for, I want to say like Frankfurt or something, but I think, it's something Mike says in the comments, I think there was a medical reason with Goat, so I think something came up with him medically in his sort of mid-20s that kind of stifled his career, where something came up, and I'm not talking about like a football injury, it was like something to do with like
usually it's
stomach or something like that. Yeah, it was some sort of medical condition that affected him, and it kept him out the game for a wee while, and he was very stop-start, as you said.
Usually joining Chelsea does that to you, Phil, you know what I mean?
Aye. The curse of the number 9. Or the Chelsea.
But no, I think it was a a moment in time where you thought this is going to be the face now, the poster boy, etc.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen sometimes. But you're right. When you look at the record for Germany to achieve that, it was massive, Liam. But it was a coming of age of a squad, and I think we've seen the cycle. I think the Germans are. It's weird because they talk about them as a personality of a team, as efficiency and things like this. I also think you can always tell when they're coming to the end of a cycle, when there's a new cycle beginning, and then when that cycle's peaking. You know, you wouldn't rule them out winning the World Cup again in 4 to 8 years, and winning the Euros as well, and having an elite team. It's just they seem to really squeeze out of a team, if that makes sense. Like they get a new crop, and then that is the crop of players. There'll be the 1 or 2 sprinkles in it, but really they get a nucleus of a squad built from a very young age, and then that's them for 12 years. And then obviously there's the 1 or 2, the outrageous talents that they get added to that throughout the way if it cannot be helped. But in general, you see the Germans, and there becomes a familiarity with them, and they start winning things. And that seems to be their cycle's quite obvious in a weird way, isn't it?
I mean, they seem to have done really well by naturalization and, like naturalizing talent, taking in a lot of boys in their academy for Turkey, Africa. We're seeing it with Scotland. We've got who to buy them. Jonathan Alphonso Davies for Canada. He played about, half a dozen games with the Vancouver Whitecaps. And bang, he was off to Bayern Munich like that. Didn't even get used to him. They had scouted him, and he went over there that quick, and he was basically playing in their first team within about 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
So I think so. There's a lot of foreigners playing in Germany right now in Bayern Munich. They're not German now, so they're playing with Canada and so on. And the boys that came for Celtic do. Hopefully they'll be playing with Scotland, but they'll not be playing with Germany as much anymore. I think it was usually like if you were African, you would get German citizenship and play for Germany, right? Whereas now I think a lot of people want to play for their African teams now as well because they're getting to the World Cups and it's a point of pride and that as well. So the profile's much bigger now, Liam, isn't it? With the likes of you look at the likes of Ghana, for example, and I see the draw. Do you know what I mean? Senegal, they're the African champions. When they were playing England, they did have a bit of pedigree now. Do you know what I mean? The landscape's completely changed on that point. I take that.
Yeah. And let's not forget as well, taking it back to a previous Bustalgia episode, all the way back to Euro 2001, where I talked about after the disastrous campaign that Germany had at Euro 2000, around about that time as well, maybe in 99 or maybe just after this tournament or Euro 2000, Scotland beat Germany in a friendly in Bremen. Don Hutchison scored with the salmon pink shirt on. And it was after that game that the German FA decided everything's fucked, everything's a mess. We need to rip it all up and start again. And that's when they began looking at your different avenues they can go down to get players who get German citizenship. And that's why you end up with Mesut Ozil, Jerome Boateng, Anthony Rudiger, all these players over the years. And they set a target, and that in 2000, when they came up with this plan, they set a target of winning the World Cup by the year 2014. So Germany, you're welcome. You're welcome for that one because it's all thanks to a friendly defeat to Scotland that they did it after that. So that's where it all came about. So there you go. That came all full circle. So you're welcome, Germany. You're welcome. But yeah, they are the world champions after this one. It wasn't the best of finals. After a good tournament, it was it's a cagey affair. It's the World Cup final. You have to expect it. But there you go. Germany were the champions. And that wraps up the 2014 Brazilian World Cup. A fun one to talk about. Thoroughly enjoyed that one.
Enjoyed that.
Well, we quickly wrap up the trivia and then I'll tell you what's happening next week because I haven't revealed what's happening next week.
Yes, hopefully it's back to Celtic stuff, mate. Please.
Oh, it's definitely back to Celtic stuff. It is. Indeed. We're just going to wrap up the last of the World Cup ones. I thought 2018 World Cup is nostalgic.
No,
I was like,
yeah. You did the right thing. You did the
right thing.
Let's
off a wee break.
We all can't wait to talk Celtic.
Next week we're going to be talking Celtic. Oh, don't you worry about that. I've got something different. I've got something up my sleeve here. But we'll quickly wrap up the trivia then. And the question at the start of the show was, can you name all the cities to have hosted the World Cup final that are not a capital city? Liam gave us one at the start, Los Angeles or Pasadena, which is part of the LA sort of city in 1994. So that's one of the answers. Do you know the other four?
Not a clue.
I've got one.
Go for it.
Rio de Janeiro.
Yes, correct. The city that's in the background, Rio de Janeiro, because Brasilia is the capital of Brazil. Rio de Janeiro is not the capital of Brazil. So yeah, because you got to remember, most of the time when I do the trivia questions, it has some kind of relation to the subject matter tonight. So of course we're talking about the Brazilian World Cup.
Good.
It wasn't played in the capital city because Rio is not the capital of Brazil. It's one of these ones that people always forget about. But yeah, there's 3 more, guys.
I don't know. I know France was in Paris. I mean, it was the World Cup 2002, Seoul.
Oh, you're not miles away. No. The capital of Tokyo is the capital of Japan's Tokyo, and the capital of Korea is Seoul. But that World Cup final wasn't played in either of those cities. It's played in a different Japanese city.
I don't have a clue. I don't know any Japanese.
Who did Ange Postecoglou manage before he became Celtic manager?
Yokohama.
That was the final was played, so that's not the capital of Japan. So Yokohama is a correct answer. Yes, 2002. So that's 3 of them. Munich, 1972. Yep. Because Berlin hosted the final in 2006.
South Africa, Johannesburg.
Johannesburg's not the capital.
The capital is Cape Town.
Pretoria.
Pretoria. It's not Johannesburg. But yeah, the 5 correct answers are Munich, Pasadena / Los Angeles, Yokohama, Johannesburg, and Rio de Janeiro.
Cool.
There you go. There's your 5. So yeah, so next week's Bustalgia isn't going to be a Bustalgia episode. It's going to be something different. We're going to do a one-off, but it's Celtic related. Because obviously it's the end. We'll come to the end of 2022. So much like Channel 4 every year would do the big fat quiz of the year, we're going to do Phil's big fat Celtic quiz of the year. How much attention have you guys been paying in 2022? So I am looking for 3 members of the bus team to join me for a quiz. So Russell, Liam, do you fancy a quiz next week? It's optional, by the way. If you don't, then don't let me know. Go for it, good man. So we need one more bus person to come on.
We'll sort that. They'll be choking to come on.
We're going to do Phil's big fat Celtic quiz of the year 2022.
So
we're coming up to the end of the year, so we might as well cap it off with the Saturday. So yeah, man. Yeah, and then we'll go back to the usual Celtic nostalgia after it.
No, I'm up for it, by the way. I am up for it, and I'm winning it.
Okay. So we'll get that sorted. So we'll have 3 on, and we'll do. I'll get all the questions together for next week, and it'll be a good laugh. So so get studying on Celtic in 2022. Get studying, guys. You know,
so it's just like this year of Celtic, 2022.
Just a calendar year of 2022. So just that, the big fat quiz of the year.
Up for it, man.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Unlike Sudden Death, where I don't give you a specific, so I just surprise you with it. I'm actually telling you in advance the subject matter to study. It's basically all Celtic in 2022 So
we need to pay Jonathan an appearance fee. Jonathan loves this sort of shit. He's good at this.
You're Jonathan on then. Okay.
Right, we'll try. But
that's what we'll do next Friday. It's going to be the big fat quiz of the year, like Channel 4 usually do.
Wow. Wow. Is there going to be like visuals in that? Is it just questions?
We're going to do a picture round. Now, have you not noticed nostalgia recently that I've been utilising the picture thing? Have you not noticed me doing that?
Yeah.
That's me been doing a test run to see how well it looks.
God, that makes sense.
See? I'm always thinking. So there will be picture rounds and everything. So yeah, we will. There'll be no video rounds because obviously the last time we used videos when Jonathan hosted the quiz with the Endless Celts, we used videos and then can't do that. Guys.
Don't worry about it. If you need to do it, just do it.
No, we'll just do pictures. We won't use video.
It's only one show. If you want to do it as a one-off, you could. If you want to use video, you're welcome to.
I'd rather use picture because it's easier. It's an easier format, so that's easier. So yeah, we'll do that.
Well, cheers for that tonight, Phil. Enjoyed that. Liam, always a pleasure, mate.
Yes, we had a great really enjoyed that.
What were you drinking? What were you drinking, Liam?
Somebody asked earlier on what you were drinking.
I don't know, some Mexican thing that's like Russian.
Right.
Yeah.
I look good, mate.
Good for the Big Lebowski, you know.
I think I've had half a litre of Morgan's.
Aye, it's got a snap to it though. It's good. Proper.
Aye. Nobody cares though, eh?
Nobody cares, mate. Right, so you can run the outro because the outro's on mine.
No worries at all. We'll do the intro for a wee change just to confuse folk.
Aye.
The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.